LoveLore Library. Chapter 249. Welcome to the previous chapter. You can unlock a new chapter if you subscribe. Shin Yu was very satisfied with his last few days in the Hofu. The only accident was that 3 days before entering the palace issued a decree to confer Shin Yu the title of Noble Lord. This had never happened before in his previous life. Shin Yu calmly received the decree in the eyes of gratification, envy, jealousy, and resentment. The eunuch who announced the decree wanted to please him and said a lot of pleasing words. "Marquis, you've really brought up a good son. This blessing is yet to come." De Huan was popular in the south. There was a system of titles for men after entering the palace. Under the empress, the highest position was Noble Lord. In the eyes of others, the legitimate son of Jinbei Ho could be said to have reached the sky in one step. Duke Jinbei smiled proudly on the surface, but in his heart, he was unable to smile. If he had received the news of his legitimate son being favored before he had even entered the palace, he would have been overjoyed. But now, he was more worried than ever. Shin Yu's attitude was too unpredictable. Along with the decree, there were also various rewards from the palace. There was no official wife in the Hofu, so all the rewards were sent to Shin Yu's courtyard. Shin Yu received the decree and came back. Looking at the big and small boxes in the courtyard, he was silent. A eunuch came with a list. His Majesty said that all the things on this list will be handed over to young Master Shin. Casually opening a chest, a huge pearl came into view. Shin Yu paused and opened the other chests. Without exception, they were all rare treasures. Looking at the list that the little eunuch took, his eyes couldn't help but overflow with a smile. But he didn't know that the young emperor who would be cursed by the people in the future because of adultery was such a rich master. Shin Yu didn't look at the rest of the boxes. He directed the servants to move the boxes to the small storeroom. He began to think, did Shin Qingran also receive so many rewards in his previous life? Shin Yu did not remember such a thing happening, whether it was in his memory of his previous life or the book he read after his death. When Shin Qingran entered the palace, he did not receive the title of Noble Lord, nor did he receive any additional rewards. Just because he was the eldest son of Count North Marquis, he could not let the man sitting high on the throne think highly of him. "Young master, it seems that Her Majesty likes you very much." Mu Shi took off the cloak for her weak and sickly young master, feeling a little happy. The people who served Shin Yu came and went. Mu Shi was one of the few who stayed. She knew that her young master had suffered a lot in the Lord Protector's mansion because he was the eldest son of the Di family. This time, because of Jinbei Ho's selfishness, he had to serve the emperor as a man. The current emperor of De Huan was famous for his war. His temperament was violent and his methods were ruthless. His reputation in the aristocratic families was not good. Mu Shi had been very worried about Shin Yu's encounter after entering the palace. Now that she saw that the emperor valued her young master so much before entering the palace, she felt a lot more gratified. The matter had come to a conclusion. She only hoped that her young master's future would be smoother. Shin Yu responded non-committally. His thoughts were deep and would not be as simple as Mu Shi thought. However, the emperor's actions could indeed help him a lot. Not guessing the emperor's thoughts, Shin Yu asked, "How is the manor?" "Everything has been arranged according to what you said." The manservant standing at the side answered in a low voice. Shin Yu nodded. He had always been very fond of his own people. He wiped his hands with a handkerchief and said to Mu Shi, "I have arranged everything at the manor. When I enter the palace, you take my token there, young master, Nubi will not leave." Without waiting for Shin Yu to finish speaking, Mu Shi knelt down. "Nubi is all alone. Young master is Nubi's only family. Nubi is not willing to leave." Mu Shi's voice was not loud, but her attitude was firm. She knew that this was the escape route that her young master had arranged for her, but she was not willing. "Young master, how can you enter the palace without a familiar person by your side?" Shin Yu looked at the person kneeling below and knew that she had made up her mind. He did not try to persuade her anymore. "I know. Get up." How could Shin Yu not consider what Mu Shi was thinking? Over the years, he had cultivated a lot of useful subordinates, but the palace was not like other places. He was destined to not be able to bring these people into the palace. However, this was not a big deal. There was naturally a use for them to stay outside. After giving the corresponding instructions, Shin Yu waved his hand to let the people leave. Mu Shi helped them change into their pajamas. Once again, she raised her head to look at Shin Yu. She wanted to say something but hesitated. Shin Yu lay comfortably on the bed. "Ask whatever you want." "Young master, why did you cancel the plan?" Mu Shi struggled for a moment but still asked. She was not the only one who wanted to know this question. The people who were arranged to be in the manor also wanted to know. Shin Yu knew that they would want to ask this question for a long time. After all, when the palace issued the decree, his resistance did not seem to be fake. The people who followed Shin Yu all knew that he wanted to get the power of the Count of Jinbei's mansion. It should belong to him. There was no reason for others to take advantage of it. However, Shin Yu fainted too suddenly and did not leave any clues. His people did not dare to act rashly and could only wait for Shin Yu to wake up. Who knew that Shin Yu, who woke up, was abnormal? He no longer resisted the idea of entering the palace. The master did not say anything and avoided entering the palace. Instead, he changed the plan. Regarding this development, everyone was at a loss. Mu Shi had been asked this question countless times, both openly and secretly. "Did they send you here to ask?" Shin Yu thought for a moment and roughly guessed what had happened. "I'm also very curious." Mu Shi did not deny it. "I'm tired of staying in the Count of Jinbei's mansion. It's good to live in another place." Shin Yu's voice was as usual, as if he was not the one who had his official career cut off and could only stay in the harem. Mu Shi was anxious, "But you don't have to follow the wishes of those people to enter the palace." Shin Yu slightly raised his lips. "Do you think the current development is really what those people want?" Thinking of the end of Madame Ru, Mu Shi was silent. "Well, don't think too much. I naturally have my reasons for doing this." After comforting the worried maid, Shin Yu's eyes darkened. He entered the palace because he found clues related to his mother in the palace in his previous life. Shin Yu, the wife of Count of Jinbei, was a short-lived woman. Except for her son, there was nothing else related to her in the world. Shin Yu did not have many feelings for this mother whom he had never met. He just wanted to find out something. Closing his eyes, he seemed to return to the rainy night in his previous life. A faint voice came through the rain. "Are you sure about this news? It's destined. It's destined." The palace, Shin Yu rubbed his forehead and felt a fishy sweetness in his throat. Cough. Cough. "Young master. Young master." Something was knocked over, making a loud, bang sound. Shin Yu leaned on the bed and his vision turned black. "Someone, call the doctor." Before he could say anything, Shin Yu fell into darkness. When he woke up, it was already noon of the next day. As soon as Shin Yu moved, the maid beside him found out and hurriedly got up. Not long after, the doctor came in. Count of Jinbei and an unfamiliar man followed behind the doctor. Shin Yu couldn't get up and lay on the bed without moving. After the doctor felt his pulse, he was taken away by a servant. Shin Yu looked at Count of Jinbei and the unfamiliar man weakly and did not speak. It was the first time that Count of Jinbei saw his eldest son so weak. His delicate face was pale and his eyelashes drooped slightly, giving people a feeling that he was weak and in urgent need of protection. He turned his head and cupped his hands to the man behind him. "Thank you, Imperial Physician Gu." Imperial Physician Gu returned the salute. "It's my duty." Imperial Physician Gu stepped forward and took Shen Yu's pulse. Shen Yu looked at him for a while and then looked away. Imperial Physician Gu Chong, was the youngest and most promising imperial physician since the founding of the Great Huan dynasty. When he was 27 years old, he became the head of the Imperial Academy of Medicine. In the same year, he lost his life because of a man-made disaster. Shen Yu remembered him because of a person he met later. Half of that person's face was disfigured and he looked like an evil spirit that crawled out of hell. Only when he talked about Imperial Physician Gu did he sound a little human. At that time, Shen Yu was in trouble. That person wanted to take revenge on the same group of people that Shen Yu wanted to deal with. The two of them formed a temporary cooperation, but the conditions were not good at that time. They could only take risks. Their goal was achieved, but that person also died tragically. It was the first time that Shen Yu encountered such strong feelings. It was also the first time that he doubted that he liked the Prince of Yu. After that, he found the two people's bones and buried them in a beautiful place. He didn't expect that he would meet Imperial Physician Gu so soon after his rebirth. After taking Shen Yu's pulse, Imperial Physician Gu asked someone to bring the original prescription. After thinking for a while, he wrote a new prescription. "Young Master Shen's body is too weak. The medicine needs to be adjusted slightly. Will Imperial Physician Gu be responsible for my illness in the future?" Shen Yu suddenly asked. Imperial Physician Gu was stunned for a moment, but he quickly answered, "It depends on the Emperor's arrangement." Shen Yu nodded and didn't speak anymore. After resting for 2 days, Shen Yu's body was a little better. It was also the day for him to enter the palace. The Emperor understood that he had just recovered from a serious illness, so he simplified the process. Duke Shenbei was not happy, but Shen Yu couldn't ask for more. On that day, Shen Yu saw the man who was bound to him in this life for the first time. The man was wearing a black imperial robe. He was tall, so the heavy imperial robe didn't make him look bloated. Instead, it made him look more imposing. He was indeed similar to the Prince of Yu, but he was many times more handsome than the Prince of Yu. How blind was he to like the Prince of Yu in his previous life? "What are you thinking about?" Shang Junlin looked at the beautiful young man who was staring at him in a daze and slowly walked over. The man's voice was low and sweet. After he deliberately lowered his voice, there was a special taste of tenderness. Shen Yu's ears twitched, and he felt a little bewitched. One should enjoy life to the fullest. Such a great beauty was also pleasing to the eye. "I'm thinking that your Majesty is more beautiful than I imagined." The last syllable was slightly raised, as if he saw something he liked. No one noticed that the young emperor, who had always been calm, paused his footsteps. "You like me?" Shang Junlin strode over and stood by the bed. He looked down at the young man who was sitting on the bed, and a sense of oppression poured down. This was the pressure of a superior with a murderous aura. The palace servants on the side had already knelt down and trembled. Only Shen Yu's expression didn't change. "Who doesn't like your Majesty's heavenly appearance?" In the silence, Shen Yu raised his head, and a smile spread in his eyes. "I naturally like it very much." The south of Dahuan was popular, and there was a system of titles for men who entered the palace. After the Empress, the highest position was the noble lord. In the eyes of others, the legitimate son of Duke Shenbei's family could be said to have reached the sky in a single bound. Duke Shenbei smiled proudly on the surface, but in his heart, he was unable to smile. If he had received the news of his legitimate son being favored before he had even entered the palace, he would have been overjoyed. But now, he was more worried than ever. Shin Yu's attitude was too unpredictable. Along with the imperial edict, various rewards from the palace came to Duke Shinbei's residence. Duke Shinbei's residence didn't have a proper wife, so all the rewards were sent to Shin Yu's courtyard. Shin Yu came back after receiving the imperial edict. Looking at the big and small boxes in the courtyard, he was speechless. A eunuch came over with a list. His Majesty said that all the things on this list will be handed over to young Master Shin. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading URL, biku50. CC. Chapter 250. After the crown ceremony, Shang Junlin made many crowns for Shin Yu. There were all kinds of materials. Even if Shin Yu wore different crowns every day, he could wear them for a long time. The makers of the crowns were all skilled craftsmen. Some showed his identity, while others were popular outside the palace. Shang Junlin vowed to do it. Shin Yu had to have what others had, and he had to have more. When conditions permitted, Shang Junlin would personally choose a crown for Shin Yu and tie up his hair in the morning. Shang Junlin was very good at these things. Your Highness, this is the new crown sent by the Imperial Household Department. There are also new materials. See if there is anything you like. It can be made into new clothes next year. The head of the Imperial Household Department came in person. Behind him was a palace servant with a tray. On the tray were items for Shin Yu to choose. This was the third time at the end of the year. Since Shin Yu and Shang Junlin got married and became the Empress, the Imperial Household Department came several times in less than a month to buy all kinds of things for Shin Yu. The specifications of the items used by the Empress and the Emperor were slightly different. Shang Junlin made up his mind to give Shin Yu the best. Many of Shin Yu's things were left in Yuzhang Palace, including the clothes that represented the Emperor's identity. After Shin Yu moved into the Emperor's bedroom, Shang Junlin waved his hand and changed everything. Shin Yu didn't need to get up. The palace servant came in with a tray for Shin Yu to choose. Shang Junlin was handling the memorials. The northern desert had entered a critical period. There were new news every day. If everything went well, it would be finished by the end of the year. The imperial court was busy with this matter. After the people from the Imperial Household Department came in, he put down his work and came over to sit beside Shin Yu. Your Majesty, what do you think of this jade crown? Shin Yu picked up a jade crown on the wooden tray. It was small and exquisite. It was made of white jade. It was translucent and shiny. Shin Yu's slender white fingers held the jade crown. It was more flawless than the beautiful jade. It's very beautiful. Shang Junlin's eyes fell on Shin Yu's fingers. It was unknown whether he was talking about the jade crown or Shin Yu's hands. These crowns were impeccable in terms of material and shape. The fact that they were chosen and presented showed that they were extraordinary. Shang Junlin especially liked one that was inlaid with a red gem. After the crown was the cloth. Without even thinking, Shang Junlin had the clothing bureau make clothes. After the people from the Imperial Household Department left, Shin Yu pulled on Shang Junlin's sleeves. Since Shin Yu entered the palace, Shang Junlin would ask the people from the Imperial Household Department to come over every once in a while to make new clothes for Shin Yu. Shang Junlin seemed to have found a hobby. He liked this process very much. After the relationship between the two improved, it became even more intense. It was no exaggeration to say that Shin Yu had so many clothes that he couldn't wear them all. The clothes that he brought from the residence of Jinbei were directly ignored. Shin Yu almost couldn't remember what those clothes looked like. The clothes he wore every day were sometimes sent by Mu Shi. Sometimes, they were sent by Shang Junlin. If he didn't see Mu Shi and her people tidying up his clothes 2 days ago, he wouldn't know that he had so many clothes. Ayu's identity is different now. Of course, he needs new clothes. Shang Junlin didn't feel that there was anything wrong. His own clothes were almost the same, but he gave Xinyu a lot of styles. Not only were the clothes popular in Dahuan, Shang Junlin also planned to prepare a few more clothes popular in other places for Xinyu. For example, the clothes in Ji Clan last time. But I haven't worn many of them yet. Xinyu was the kind of person who wouldn't treat himself unfairly. When he had the ability to make his life more comfortable, he would naturally choose a more comfortable life. But this didn't mean that he would overly pursue material desires. I remember. You promised to wear clothes that I liked before. You haven't worn them yet. Shang Junlin held Xinyu's hand and led him to sit on the soft couch at the side. The soft couch was slightly smaller than the one in Yuzhang Palace. In winter, it was very warm for the two of them. The fire in the palace was very strong. Everything was according to Xinyu's habits. Even if they changed to a new place, Xinyu always felt that it was the same as before. Only the wandering dragon patterns showed that this was the palace that belonged to the emperor. Which one? The red one. You promised to wear it for me tonight. Shang Junlin moved closer to Xinyu's ear and laughed softly. His hot breath burned the sensitive earlobe. Unsurprisingly, the earlobe's crimson color spread. The man's eyes gradually darkened as he took in all the changes. He opened his mouth and took a bite of the bright red fruit. Shang Junlin's behavior successfully changed the topic to an unspeakable direction. Xinyu's body trembled. His body remembered the man's touch very deeply. The two of them had been together for so long. They had done everything they should and shouldn't do. They were very familiar with each other's every reaction. The snow-white skin gradually turned crimson. Xinyu's body reaction was as green as ever. He heard the man's chuckle overflowing from his throat. After so many times, why hasn't you adapted yet? Xinyu pushed Shang Junlin. Don't bite. Shang Junlin let go of Xinyu's earlobe from Lu Russian. The crimson color on his ears became more intense. Xinyu covered his ears and glared at Shang Junlin angrily. Xinyu remembered. Because many things happened later, the two of them had forgotten about this dress. He didn't expect Shang Junlin to suddenly remember it. Your Majesty, why do you still remember this? There was a slight gasp in his voice. He didn't know how seductive he was at this time. The corners of his eyes were slightly red and there were some tears in his eyes. The man's throat tightened. Shang Junlin pinched Xinyu's chin, lowered his eyes and kissed the young man's lips. I remember everything you said. The palace servants had already retreated. Only Xinyu and Shang Junlin were left in the hall. During their movements, there was a rustling sound of clothes rubbing against each other. There was a slight sound of water and gradually heavier breathing. Xinyu was kissed thoroughly. Xinyu struggled to break free. Even his fingertips were numb. After 3 days of indulgence, Xinyu rested for a long time. Shang Junlin knew that he had gone too far and didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. For the next few days, he looked at Xinyu with dissatisfaction. Xinyu finally relented. Shang Junlin didn't dare to be too presumptuous. It was really difficult to let a person who had tasted the feeling of being full be forced to starve. Later, when he finally had the chance to eat, he could only eat half full. Xinyu also knew. So generally, as long as Shang Junlin didn't go too far, he wouldn't say anything. He could feel Shang Junlin's desire and dependence on him. He enjoyed the feeling of being strongly needed. If Shang Junlin wasn't so energetic, Xinyu felt that he and Shang Junlin were very compatible. With Xinyu's physical strength, it would be difficult for him to completely resist Shang Junlin. However, Xinyu wasn't really unwilling. If he wasn't willing, he wouldn't let Shang Junlin do whatever he wanted. He loved this person. Naturally, he also had desires for him. Naturally, he also liked to be intimate with him. Leaning on Shang Junlin's shoulder, Shin Yu thought about all kinds of things. His breathing gradually calmed down. Shang Junlin put his hand on Shin Yu's neck and slowly rubbed it. Shin Yu's clothes were a little messy. Shang Junlin ignored his own clothes that were wrinkled and carefully tidied up Shin Yu's clothes. You can't go back on your promise to me. I know. Your Majesty, just ask someone to find my clothes. Shin Yu knew that he couldn't escape this calamity, but he didn't plan to escape. Shang Junlin kissed Shin Yu's forehead. Shin Yu's treatment was still ongoing. It had already reached the second stage. Imperial Physician Gu's method was very effective. After the third stage of treatment, Shin Yu's body would be able to recover to the standard of an ordinary person. Shin Yu never thought that one day, he would be able to completely get rid of the illness that had accompanied him for 2 lifetimes. In the past, he didn't care. Now that he had Shang Junlin, he hoped that he could be healthy and not let his lover worry about his health. As usual, Imperial Physician Gu came to check Shin Yu's pulse. Because Imperial Physician Gu had always been in charge of Shin Yu's health, the two of them were much closer. Sometimes, the two of them would simply chat. Shin Yu noticed that Imperial Physician Gu was occasionally absent-minded and had dark circles under his eyes. After checking his pulse, he asked, "Did something happen to Imperial Physician Gu? You don't seem to have rested well." "Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. I'm fine. If there's anything, you can tell me. You've done your best to treat my illness. If there's anything you need help with, you can tell me and Your Majesty." Imperial Physician Gu was silent for a while and shook his head. "It's just some private matters. I'll take care of it." Since he didn't want to say, Shin Yu didn't force him. No matter what happens, Imperial Physician Gu must take good care of his body. When Shang Junlin came back from dealing with court affairs, Shin Yu mentioned it to him. "It's because of Gu Huai. There seems to be some conflict between them." Coincidentally, Shang Junlin had heard about this matter. Since Imperial Physician Gu said that he could handle it, Shin Yu didn't intervene. He just said half-jokingly, "Your Majesty, you can't let General Gu bully Imperial Physician Gu." With Gu Huai's feelings for Imperial Physician Gu, he shouldn't hurt him. "I'll let people pay attention." The palace servants were instructed by Shang Junlin to find the red coat that hadn't been used yet. The cloth of this coat was very light and thin. It was like a cluster of mist, as if it would disperse with a gentle breeze. Shin Yu never went back on his word. The hot water in the bathtub had been prepared in advance. Amidst the dense steam, a white wrist pulled open the gauze curtain. What followed was a touch of red. The young man was dressed meticulously. His black hair was tied up high. Shang Junlin's favorite jade crown was used to tie up his hair. The floor was covered with a thick velvet carpet. The young man didn't wear shoes or socks. He walked barefoot step by step. The bathtub was built in a gorgeous palace. On the other side of the bathtub was a very large bed. At this moment, a man wearing an imperial court robe was sitting on the bed. He stared at the young man who was approaching step by step without blinking. The young man's expression was very serious. It was too serious. Instead, it revealed an indescribable desire. This was because the red coat he was wearing was translucent. Every part of his body was tightly wrapped, but it was half hidden. As he walked, his bare feet peeked out from the layers of clothes. Under the contrast of the red, they looked even fairer. Shang Junlin's gaze swept over Shin Yu's body inch by inch. The aggression gradually increased. It was as if there was a substance in his gaze. It was hot and dense, as if it could burn someone. Shang Junlin didn't move. His burning gaze fell on Shin Yu until Shin Yu walked in front of him. "Do you like it, Your Majesty?" Shin Yu asked softly. "I like it." Shang Junlin raised his head. The strong emotions in his eyes almost overflowed. "I've agreed to Your Majesty's request. Shouldn't Your Majesty also agree to a request of mine?" Shin Yu's movements were extremely slow. Every step she took seemed to be stepping on Shang Junlin's heart. The distance between the two of them got closer. Shang Junlin could smell the faint medicinal fragrance coming from Shin Yu's body. "What does you want me to agree to?" He only realized how hoarse his voice was after he spoke. Shang Junlin tried his best to restrain his crazy desire. "Your Majesty will know in a while." Shin Yu chuckled as she straddled Shang Junlin's body. She felt the man's body tense up. The smile in her eyes deepened. The red coat and the black coat were stacked together. One was soft like mist, the other was heavy and solemn. They intertwined with each other. "What is you doing?" Shang Junlin's breathing became heavier and his voice became hoarser. He felt something soft rubbing against the side of his face. His hands were tied. Sweat dripped from his forehead. Shang Junlin laughed involuntarily. "When did you wear this?" "Your Majesty, do you still remember it?" Shin Yu's breathing was unstable. "I wanted to find the one I used last time. I couldn't find it, so I asked someone to find another one." Shang Junlin put away the other one. Shang Junlin naturally wouldn't say anything. Shin Yu was tied up loosely and was easily untied. Shang Junlin couldn't bear it anymore. The two of them switched positions. He covered Shin Yu's body and stroked the pair of absent-minded eyes. "Let me do it." A storm swept over. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, biku50. CC. Chapter 251. Jiang Huiqing completed his mission and returned to Dahuan. His identity in the northern desert was completely abandoned. From now on, there was only Jiang Huiqing in the world. There was no demon-like strategist Yu Feng who could stir up the situation in the northern desert. He first went to Subei and then used the excuse of returning to the capital at the end of the year to report on his work to Yi Qingyu and the other officials who stayed in Subei to return to the capital. The hidden dragon guards secretly escorted them throughout the journey. Fortunately, there were no mistakes along the way. No one knew that Jiang Huiqing hid his identity and changed his appearance to go to the northern desert in this year. After Jiang Huiqing returned to the capital, Shang Junlin privately held a small banquet to show off his achievements. Those who participated all knew the inside story of this matter. It could also be said that they were all valued by Shang Junlin and were recognized by him as his direct descendants. Jiang Huiqing and Yi Qingyu were able to join them at such a young age. As long as they didn't make a big mistake in the heat of the moment, their future careers would definitely be smooth. Shin Yu and Shang Junlin attended the banquet together. He sat beside Shang Junlin and looked at Jiang Huiqing. 1 year of living in the northern desert had brought great changes to him. At this moment, Jiang Huiqing's eyes were no longer young and inexperienced. His gaze was deep and profound, somewhat similar to Shin Yu's memory of his previous life. "I, fortunately, did not disappoint you." Jiang Huiqing had already written a report and handed it to Shang Junlin. At the banquet, he chose a few of the more important things to talk about. "You have made a great contribution this time. Do you have anything you want?" Shang Junlin would not shortchange Jiang Huiqing of any rewards that should be given to Jiang Huiqing. Other than that, he was also willing to satisfy any additional requests from Jiang Huiqing. Jiang Huiqing had handled the matter in the northern desert too well. It was better than they had imagined. The imperial court had gone through several turbulences and was now in need of people. After this, Jiang Huiqing's career would definitely soar. Moreover, he had no support in the imperial court. He was alone and had no connections with the imperial court. To some people, this might be a disadvantage, but to Jiang Huiqing, this was a huge advantage. It is my honor to serve your majesty and the Great Huan dynasty. Your majesty has given me enough rewards, and I have nothing else I want. Jiang Huiqing was not being courteous. Shang Junlin had given him a very generous reward. He would be given a mansion in a prosperous area of the capital, countless gold and silver, and an official position that had not yet been given to him, but would definitely belong to him in the future. Moreover, at first, he wanted to stand at a high enough position to redress his teacher's grievances. However, this matter had already been completed. While he was working hard for the Great Huan Kingdom, the king of the Great Huan Kingdom had redressed his teacher's name and cleared his teacher's name. What he wanted to do had already been done in advance, and it was done even better. When Jiang Huiqing found out about this, he was at a loss for a moment. The goal that he had been working hard for all these years had suddenly disappeared. He actually did not know what to do. His teacher had always lamented that it was rare to meet a wise king. He had also told him that if he was lucky enough to meet a wise king, he must do his best to assist him. He thought that he should have met one now. You don't have to feel too much pressure. These are all what you deserve. If you want anything, just tell His Majesty directly. This year, you have solved a big problem in the northern desert. You are a great contributor to the Great Huan Kingdom. Seeing that Jiang Huiqing was in a daze for a moment, Shen Yu said, "Thank you, Your Highness. I only want to serve the Great Huan Kingdom, His Majesty, and Your Highness. Other than that, I have no other requests." With a new goal in mind, Jiang Huiqing's conviction became more and more firm. This time, when he returned, he could clearly feel the changes in the Great Huan Kingdom. Without a doubt, these changes were for the better. Jiang Huiqing was very happy that Gui Jun had been conferred the title of king and had the same rights as His Majesty. He and Shen Yu were like-minded. Shen Yu was his only friend other than He Qingyu after coming to the capital. Although the two of them had different statuses and their relationship might not be the same in the future, he was still happy for this friend. Not only Jiang Huiqing, He Qingyu, Fang Jie, and the others had also made great contributions this year. They all returned to the capital and received the rewards they deserved. Shang Junlin gave the three of them houses and some other rewards. The national treasury was full. The Minister of Revenue did not feel any heartache when he gave out the money. The courtiers all knew that if there was anything that required the national treasury's money, it was best to ask for it during this period of time while the Minister of Revenue was in a good mood. Fang Jie and He Qingyu were both at the banquet. Because Fang Jie often dealt with the northern desert, she knew some inside information. She was surprised by Jiang Huiqing's courage and was even more shocked that he could complete this matter so perfectly. This year's trip to the northern desert accelerated Jiang Huiqing's maturity. His behavior became more impeccable. At the end of the year, Shang Junlin gave them a holiday to let them have time to deal with their personal matters. The changes in their official positions and other plans would be announced after the new year. He Qingyu and Fang Jie also changed a lot. There were many things waiting to be done in Subei. This kind of place was the best training for people. He Qingyu was more experienced in doing things. Everything in Subei was almost single-handedly managed by him. To be able to redevelop Subei in a year's time showed his ability. After Fang Jie returned to the capital, she received the most attention. This was because of her outstanding military achievements, and also because she was the first female official in the Great Huan dynasty. She broke the world's perception of women, and allowed more women to see a new direction in life. So our lives could be like this. Feng Jiayi accompanied her parents at home for a few days. During this period, many matchmakers came to propose marriage, but they were all rejected by her. After the new year, the northern desert would send envoys to the Great Huan Kingdom. This time, they borrowed the Subei army, so they had to show some appreciation. Shang Junlin told them to make preparations in advance. At that time, how should they treat the northern desert? At night, Shen Yu and Shang Junlin walked back to the palace. Shen Yu was wearing a thick cloak and was held in Shang Junlin's arms. The palace servants were far behind so as not to disturb them. It snowed heavily last night. As far as the eye could see, the entire palace was covered in white snow. Shen Yu hugged a hand warmer. The cold wind blew, and soon her face was red. Are you cold? Shang Junlin touched Shen Yu's face. The man's palm was very warm. Shen Yu subconsciously rubbed against it. I'm okay. The treatment had reached the second stage. Shen Yu's body recovered very well. Coupled with Shang Junlin's careful care, she was no longer as cold as before. Shen Yu stopped when they passed by the plum garden. The plum blossoms in the garden were in full bloom. The red plum blossoms reflected the snow, adding a different scenery to the winter. Shall we go in and take a look? Shang Junlin suggested. Knowing that Shen Yu liked these things, Shang Junlin ordered people to renovate the palace and built several gardens especially for Shen Yu. They planted flowers and plants from all over the country. They would bloom in different seasons for people to enjoy. During this period of time, the weather was too cold. Shen Yu had been holed up in the palace and rarely went out. Today, he happened to pass by this place, so he nodded. The two entered the garden. This was a very large garden full of plum blossoms. It was the season when the plum blossoms bloomed. The red plum blossoms all over the sky were like a fire in the air. As soon as they got close, they smelled the refreshing fragrance of the plum blossoms mixed with the coldness of the cold white snow. The ground was covered with a thick layer of snow. Every step they took left a footprint. The two walked all the way in, leaving a trail of footprints. Shen Yu looked back at the footprints behind him. The snow is so big that we can build a snowman. The moon tonight was very big and round. Under the moonlight, the world was as bright as day. Shen Yu and Shang Junlin were in the plum garden, so it didn't affect their vision at all. The branches of the plum blossoms were also covered with snow. The place where they stood was white, leaving only the red blossoms on the branches. Do you want to build one? Shen Yu nodded reservedly. Has your majesty built one before? Shen Yu looked at the pure white snow and asked. I built one when I was very young. At that time, Empress Mother was still alive. It was snowing, and Empress Mother was pestered by me to build a small snowman in the courtyard. Unfortunately, the next day, the snowman melted when the sun came out. Shang Junlin hadn't thought about these memories for a long time. After Empress Mother passed away, his life turned into a completely different path from before. He had to do his best to survive, so he didn't have time to play with the snow without worries. During the most difficult time at the border, he relied on a handful of snow to survive. Have you built one before? Shen Yu shook his head. He had never built one before. Because of his health, he was afraid of the cold since he was young. In winter, it was difficult for him to go out, let alone play with the snow. Sometimes Shen Qingran would unintentionally show off to him that his father had built a snowman with him. Little Shen Yu pretended not to care, but in his heart, he hoped that one day, Count Jinbei could also build a snowman with him. After he grew up, he could easily accomplish many things that he thought were extravagant when he was young. However, Shen Yu was no longer interested. He understood that what he once desired was not the snowman itself, but something else. After he got together with Shang Junlin, many of the things that he couldn't accomplish in the past were completed by other men. The gap in his heart was filled little by little. He received the unreserved, complete love of the Emperor of the Great Huan Kingdom. He tasted the taste of being favored. This taste was too tempting, and people couldn't help but indulge in it. Shen Yu looked up and saw Shang Junlin looking at him. Those dark eyes were filled with tenderness. It was an affection that was only shown to him. "Your Majesty, come with me. I don't know how to do it. I hope your Majesty can teach me." "Okay." Under Shang Junlin's instructions, Shen Yu, who felt that he had already learned how to do it, wanted to try it himself. "Your Majesty and I will compete to see who can roll the biggest snowball. The small one will give the big one a gift. How about it?" "Okay." Shang Junlin was very easy to talk to. Shen Yu lowered his head and focused on rolling the snowball. He was good at hands-on, and the snowball he rolled was decent. When Shen Yu felt that it was about time, he stopped and looked for Shang Junlin. Shang Junlin was standing not far away from him. There was a big snowball beside his leg. He didn't know when it had been rolled. It was bigger than Shen Yu's snowball. Shen Yu lost. However, the joy in his heart didn't decrease at all. "Your Majesty, come quickly. Let's make a snowman." The two worked together. The small snowball was stacked on top of the big one. They found decorations and placed them on the small snowball. A chubby snowman was completed. Although the two were novices, this snowman was very round and cute. Their hands were red from the cold, but their hearts were warm. Shen Yu pointed at the big snowman. "Look at our snowman, Your Majesty." Shen Yu found some plum blossoms to decorate the snowman. The more he looked at it, the more satisfied he was. "Be careful, your hands are frostbitten." Shang Junlin held Shen Yu's hands and rubbed them in his palms. Shen Yu didn't feel cold, only excitement and joy. The gap in his heart was quietly filled. He raised his head slightly and looked at Shang Junlin. His eyes were shining. "I want to make a snowman with Your Majesty when it snows in the future. Is that okay, Your Majesty?" Shang Junlin lowered his head and rubbed Shen Yu with his forehead. "No matter what you wants to do, I will accompany you. I lost today. I have a gift for Your Majesty." Shen Yu raised his arm and covered Shang Junlin's eyes with his hand. "A Yu's gift is ready so soon." Shang Junlin let Shen Yu cover his eyes. In the darkness, he blinked. Shen Yu's eyelashes swept across his palm, causing a slight itch. Shen Yu pursed his lips. He didn't know why, but he felt a little nervous. After a while, Shen Yu released his hand. "The moonlight tonight is very beautiful. I want to give it to Your Majesty." Red plum blossoms, snow, and a handsome young man under the red plum blossoms. The moonlight was like silk. Shen Yu was bathed in the clear light. He looked like an immortal. At this moment, he was looking at him with affection. The immortal above the 9 heavens had fallen in love with him and developed desire. Nothing made Shang Junlin more excited than this knowledge. In Shang Junlin's eyes, Shen Yu was like the moonlight in the sky. Now, this moonlight fell into his arms. He had the moon in his heart. "I like it very much, Yu." Shang Junlin lifted the young man's chin and lowered his head to cover his soft lips. His other hand wrapped around Shen Yu's waist and pulled him closer to himself. Under the moonlight, the two hugged each other tightly. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, biku50. CC. Chapter 252. At the beginning of spring, the northern desert sent envoys over. Fang Jie, Jiang Huiqing, He Qingyu, and the others who had performed well had all stayed in the capital. The official appointment had also been made, and Fang Jie had taken up a post in the Honglu Temple. When the envoys of the northern desert saw Fang Jie and the other officials of Honglu Temple, they were stunned. Shen Yu and Shang Junlin discussed this matter in the palace. The envoys of the northern desert have arrived in the capital, right? Shen Yu handed Shang Junlin a cup of tea. The new tea was served in the palace. The weather was getting warmer in spring. Shen Yu and Shang Junlin enjoyed the sunshine in the pavilion outside and tasted the new tea. They're here. They should have checked in at this time. Shang Junlin took a sip of the tea. The new emperor of the northern desert sent someone here to show his goodwill. It is said that there are also members of the royal family. Shen Yu took the tea prepared for himself. Before he got close, he could smell the faint fragrance of the tea. It's a pair of twins. They are not old. They said that they were sent to the Great Huan Kingdom for exchange and study. In fact, they are here as hostages. The new emperor of the northern desert doesn't have much affection for the royal family of the northern desert. He is very tactful. Along with the envoys came a letter of credence from the new emperor of the northern desert. The content of the letter of credence almost promised that the northern desert would bow down to the Great Huan Kingdom. Shen Yu had read the content of the letter of credence. It was not difficult to see that the new emperor of the northern desert did not have much affection for the northern desert. He was closer to the Great Huan Kingdom than the northern desert. This was understandable. After all, half of the blood of the Great Huan Kingdom flowed in his body. Moreover, his experience since childhood had doomed him to hate the northern desert. It's a good thing for the Great Huan Kingdom that the northern desert has such an emperor. The courtiers were also discussing this matter. They also knew the content of the letter of credence. Although they did not know the inside story, they felt that the attitude of the new emperor of the northern desert was very strange. Is the emperor of the northern desert plotting something? Everything in the letter of credence is biased towards the Great Huan Kingdom. Did he write this to lower our vigilance? Anyway, be careful. Did His Majesty say what to do with the two members of the royal family? Twins, but they are brother and sister. The northern desert's intention is that they admire the Great Huan Kingdom and want to learn more about the culture of the Great Huan Kingdom. In the end, they are the hostages sent by the northern desert. We have to ask His Majesty about the arrangements first. Shen Yu was in the imperial study accompanying Shang Junlin to approve the memorials. After the authority was delegated to the cabinet, the number of memorials that Shang Junlin had to approve every day decreased by a lot. Recently, the ones that appeared the most were those that involved the northern desert. Shang Junlin quietly shared the power with him. Shen Yu thought that the minister would make a fuss, but he didn't expect that it was calm for several days. Shen Yu suspected that Shang Junlin suppressed the news. Only later did he find out that not many people were against it. Shang Junlin said that he would take care of this matter. He really didn't let this matter disturb Shen Yu's good mood. Shen Yu flipped through the memorials and saw a minister's proposal on how to arrange the people from the northern desert. Shen Yu put it in front of Shang Junlin. Does His Majesty have any plans? Didn't you say that they are here to learn? Just send them to the academy. If they don't know much about the Great Huan Kingdom, they can go to the elementary school first. The elementary school in the capital had already started to accept students. What everyone didn't expect was that in addition to their own children, many adults also signed up to send the two princes and princesses. It didn't seem out of place. In the courier station, the envoy who had dealt with Fang Jie was telling the other envoys to be cautious in their words and actions in the capital of the Great Huan Kingdom. They shouldn't offend the officials of the Great Huan Kingdom, especially that official Fang. Why? Someone didn't understand. After all, he won't harm you. Official Fong was in Subei before. Do you understand now? Hearing this, the remaining people's expressions became sad. Official Fong of Subei had left a heavy shadow in the northern desert, so much so that everyone in the northern desert's officialdom knew him. Regarding what Official Fong said, we will be careful in our words and actions during this period. We won't do anything we shouldn't do. Yes, yes. We represent the face of the northern desert. We should pay attention to our words and actions so that no one can find fault with us. They quickly reached an agreement. The northern desert's envoys were too obedient. The officials of the Great One Kingdom were still a little unaccustomed to it. The officials who had experienced the visit of the northern desert's envoys felt even more enlightened. At that time, the northern desert's people were all arrogant, unlike now, where they didn't dare to cause any trouble. The official who came to the northern desert's envoys proposed His Majesty's suggestion to send the 2 princes and princesses from the northern desert to the elementary school. He thought that it would make the other party unhappy and be troubled, but he didn't expect the other party to be unexpectedly easy to talk to. When he left, the official still felt that it was unreal. The members of the northern desert's royal family who were sent to the Great One Kingdom were a pair of 15-year-old twins. They didn't have a good life in the northern desert, so they were thinner and smaller than their peers. They didn't have the right to speak. They acted as mascots in the entire team of envoys and didn't have a strong sense of presence. The news of the 2 was sent to the palace. Shinyu said, "The new emperor of the northern desert is quite interesting." He sent the people who may affect his throne in the future to the Great One Kingdom in advance. It not only shows his attitude to the Great One Kingdom, but also reduces the hidden dangers. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Shang Junlin said, "More than a year of internal strife caused the northern desert's royal family to wither. Those who had the power to compete for the throne died in the internal strife. The remaining ones are not a threat. Otherwise, the northern desert's people wouldn't worship a person who has half the blood of the Great One Kingdom in his body. The twins can survive because in the northern desert, twins are ominous." Shinyu asked, "Has your Majesty seen the 2 of them?" Shang Junlin said, "Not yet." Why do you ask?" Shinyu said, "I'm a little curious. I don't know what kind of people can survive in the evil circle." Shang Junlin said, "In 2 days, the imperial court will hold a banquet. You will be able to see them then." 2 days later, Shinyu saw the twins. They learned the basic court etiquette. When they saluted Shinyu and Shang Junlin, they used the Great One Kingdom's etiquette. These 2 people were very good-looking. Although they were a little thin, they gave people a feeling of willows in the wind. The envoys presented the gifts they brought from the northern desert. They were very generous. When they left, they would also take some things from the Great One Kingdom. This was the deal that the new emperor of the northern desert had made when he borrowed the northern army. As Shinyu said before, the people of the Great One Kingdom who went to the northern desert would bring the seeds of the Great One Kingdom's culture to the northern desert. Under the subtle influence, the people of the northern desert would gradually lean towards the Great One Kingdom. When they spoke the language of the Great One Kingdom, wrote the characters of the Great One Kingdom, and approved of the Great One Kingdom in their hearts, what was the difference between them and the people of the Great One Kingdom? "Your Majesty, do you think that the new emperor of the northern desert knows about our plan?" "He knows." Shang Junlin held Shinyu in his arms. "He wrote another letter to me, saying that he hoped to return to the Great One Kingdom as a Great One citizen in the future with his mother's remains." Shinyu asked, "How did his mother come to the northern desert?" Shang Junlin said, "She was robbed from the northern desert. At that time, the people of the northern desert attacked the northern desert. They not only robbed the resources of the northern desert, but also many people of the northern desert. Most of them were women." Shinyu said, "With your Majesty around, such things will never happen again in the future." Shang Junlin lifted the chin of the person in his arms. You trust me that much? Your Majesty has already done it, haven't you? The Great Huan Kingdom was becoming more and more powerful. The attitude of the surrounding countries towards the Great Huan Kingdom was already different from before. They didn't dare to try to tear off a piece of meat from the Great Huan Kingdom like before, because as long as they made a move, what awaited them would be the Great Huan Kingdom's cavalry. Not only did they not dare to make a move, but some small countries even took the initiative to ask for protection. They volunteered to become the Great Huan Kingdom's subordinate countries to avoid being bullied by other countries. Shen Yu believed that the Great Huan Kingdom's territory would continue to expand under the leadership of Shang Junlin. Before the arrival of summer, Shen Yu's body was completely healed. Imperial Physician Wu retired, and Imperial Physician Gu smoothly took over his position. At this time, no one dared to say a word. Your Majesty, I want to open a free clinic among the people to treat the poor people. After recovering from his illness, Shen Yu felt that he should do something. Even in the capital, there were a lot of people who couldn't afford to be treated, not to mention other remote places. Shen Yu had been tortured by his illness for a long time. He knew how uncomfortable it was to be sick. After being reborn, he got rid of the illness that had troubled him for a long time. However, there were still many people in the world who didn't have the ability to treat their illness even though it wasn't serious. A youth can do whatever he wants to do. In the end, Shen Yu used his own money to open a free clinic in the Great Huan Kingdom. Those that were close to the capital were treated by the imperial physicians of the Imperial Hospital. For those that were far away, Shen Yu used his own money to invite the doctors from all over the country to spend 2 days each season to provide free clinic for the people. During these 2 days, Shen Yu paid for the consultation and medicinal herbs. Many poor people who were tortured by the illness were treated. They remembered Shen Yu in their hearts and spontaneously set up longevity plaques for Shen Yu in their homes. They prayed that the heavens would bless the Empress to be healthy and live in harmony with His Majesty. The scope of the examination that was originally only held in the Ministry of Works was expanded. Shang Junlin set up a new department in the Imperial Court, the Bureau of Natural Resources. It was independent of the Imperial Court and was only responsible for researching new things. People with skills were selected from all over the country to enter the Bureau of Natural Resources to display their strengths. The existence of the Bureau of Natural Resources would allow the future Great Huan Kingdom to lead the world in terms of technology. Everyone believed that under the governance of Shen Yu and Shang Junlin, Great Huan Kingdom would become better and better. Shang Junlin also knew that all these changes were brought about by Shen Yu. Shen Yu had brought a miracle to him and Great Huan Kingdom. Knowing what Shang Junlin was thinking, Shen Yu hugged his neck and said, "Your Majesty, do you think that I'm so amazing? Yu has always been amazing." Shang Junlin pulled her into his arms. "If it wasn't for your Majesty's foresight and trust in me, I wouldn't be able to display even a little of my abilities. All of this is clearly due to your Majesty's contributions. I'm just saying a lot of things, but it's your Majesty who really put them into practice," Shen Yu said seriously. After experiencing 2 lives, Shen Yu knew better than anyone how precious this unconditional trust was. "I believe in you, and you also believes in me. I and you should be together." "Yes." Shen Yu leaned into the man's arms and nodded slowly. In this world, there was no one who understood him better than Shang Junlin, who could accommodate him and tolerate him more. "It's so good to be with your Majesty," Shen Yu murmured. "Then you must always be with me." Shang Junlin hugged the person in his arms even tighter. "Good." Shen Yu raised her head and pecked Shang Junlin's lips. "Alin will always belong to me, and I will always belong to Alin." Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, Biku50. CC. Chapter 253. It was another spring, and the students went to the capital for the imperial examinations. Shin Yu and Shang Junlin changed into casual clothes and went out of the palace. The street was very lively, and the vendors were shouting. Students from all over the country stopped from time to time to buy one or two things. Shin Yu, who was dressed in a green robe, was holding the hand of a tall man in a black robe as they walked in the crowd. Lin, do you have any plans today? Let's walk around first. If we're hungry, we can go to the Yingxing Tower to eat. Then we can go to the newly built Mingyu Building. Mingyu Building was a library that collected a large number of famous works. There was even no lack of copies that were hidden in the hands of aristocratic families. People from all over the country could borrow and read there. Since the opening of Mingyu Building, it had become the favorite place of scholars. Here, they could read a lot of books that they couldn't read normally. There were many students coming and going. They were discussing the changes in Dahuan, the wisdom of the emperor, and their future dreams. Shin Yu and Shang Junlin brushed past them. The sun was bright, and the warm velvet sprinkled on them, bringing the hope of spring. Shin Yu and Shang Junlin walked into the alley that they had been to before. It was not much different from 3 years ago, but this time, the bookstall owner strongly recommended the articles written by He Qingyu, Jiang Huiqing, and Fang Jia. Shin Yu and Shang Junlin found the familiar boss and walked to the front of the stall. Shin Yu picked up a book from the stall. Boss, do you have any recommendations? This year, of course, I must recommend the articles written by the 3 officials who passed the imperial examinations last time. Who doesn't know that the 3 officials are valued by the emperor? They were promoted very quickly. After reading their articles, the bookstall owner took out a book from behind and suddenly opened his eyes wide. 2 young masters, long time no see. How have you been? You still remember us? Shin Yu held the handle of his fan and pressed it against his chin. 2 young masters, I will never forget you. Since you are acquaintances, I can give you a discount on whatever you want to buy. Shin Yu now knew that these stall owners had legitimate bookstores behind them. They had set up their stalls here because the students had spread the word of mouth and knew about this place. On the other hand, it was more convenient. Most of the books here were for students. Shin Yu picked a few books and handed them to Shang Junlin. He asked, Boss, do you still have those storybooks from before? Young master, are you talking about the story of those 2? The bookstall owner pointed to the sky. Shin Yu nodded. So the 2 young masters are also chasing after their stories. You've asked the right person. Here, we not only have the common ones on the market, but also the collector's edition. A collector's edition. The bookstall owner had a mysterious look on his face. You might not be able to buy this collector's edition just by having money. You have to be a regular customer. Shin Yu's interest was piqued. Boss, do you have it here? We don't have it here. We only have it in the bookstore. If the 2 of you are interested, I can get my assistant to bring it over. Shin Yu was curious about what was written in the collector's edition. He nodded. Sorry to trouble you, boss. Shin Yu and Shang Junlin didn't leave immediately because they had to wait for the book to come back. Instead, they strolled around nearby. When they reached a corner, Shin Yu stopped. Ah Lin, do you still remember this place? Yes. Shang Junlin pinched Shin Yu's fingers. Shin Yu looked around. There shouldn't be anyone coming this time. Ah Lin, do you want a kiss? Shang Junlin lowered his head and kissed Shin Yu directly. He answered with his actions. Shin Yu's waist was held. He raised his arm and wrapped it around Shang Junlin's neck. He was immersed in this kiss. Their lips and teeth touched, and their breaths merged. Their senses of the outside world gradually faded away. They could only feel each other. 3 years ago, they kissed here. At that time, Shin Yu didn't know that in the future, his eyes and heart would be filled with this man. 3 years later, they had experienced a lot. Their relationship had also stabilized. They returned to the same place and did the same thing. The feeling was completely different from the first time. A gentle breeze blew past, but it couldn't blow away the thick warmth. After a long time, Shin Yu was released. Shang Junlin pressed his forehead against Shin Yu's. You is now mine. No one can take it away. Even if someone comes to take it away, I won't go with him. From the beginning to the end, I will only choose all in. Their breaths intertwined, and warmth flowed around them. Outside the alley, there were sounds of conversation from time to time. In the corner, there was only the two of them. No one disturbed them. When they returned to the bookstall, Shin Yu's lips were a little brighter than before. There was also a light pink on his face. Shang Junlin was the same as before. The collector's edition was sealed in a brocade box. The price was much more expensive than the normal edition. Shang Junlin paid for it without hesitation. He took the book that Shin Yu had chosen. After leaving the alley, the hidden dragon guards who were following behind them appeared. They took the book from Shang Junlin's hands and disappeared again. Shin Yu and Shang Junlin continued to shop. The two of them walked and stopped. They bought a lot of things. They were all bought by Shin Yu because he was in the mood to do so. There were some folk toys and snacks. Xiao Yu. Hearing someone call his name, Shin Yu turned around. A young man in white stood in the crowd and looked at him. Ji Wuwang. Shin Yu held Shang Junlin's hand and walked over. Your eyes. Shin Yu looked at the young man in white who was slightly taller than him. The white cloth covering the young man's eyes was gone. Without the white cloth covering them, Shin Yu realized that the two of them looked even more alike. My eyes are fine now. Ji Wuwang raised his hand and touched his eyes. Let's talk somewhere else. Shang Junlin said. There were so many people on the street. It was not convenient. Just when it was time for lunch, the group went to the Yingxing Tower. They chose a private room on the second floor by the window. Ji Wuwang sat opposite the two of them. How is the Ji family now? Shin Yu poured tea for the three of them and asked. Most of the family members have moved out. Now that the world is peaceful, they have adapted well. If there was a choice, no one would want to live a closed life. The Ji family moved to a place with beautiful mountains and limpid waters. It was not far from the capital. It could be reached by horse in half a day. The location was chosen by Ji Wuwang. He wanted to be closer to Shin Yu. If Shin Yu was wronged, he could help him in time. However, most of his worries were unnecessary. They had not seen each other for more than a year. Shang Junlin treated Shin Yu the same as before. As the emperor of a country, it was easy for him to take care of his younger brother. Ji Wuwang and Shin Yu talked about the Ji family. In the end, he said, you can let the family members participate in the free medical consultation. The Ji family is a medical family. This kind of opportunity can also let the younger generation learn a thing or two. Shin Yu agreed. If they are interested, they can participate. Of course, I will not treat them unfairly. They will get what they deserve. The Ji family has a lot of medical books and herbs. If you need them, you can come and get them. Occasionally, Shang Junlin would also say a few words. The three of them chatted happily. Shin Yu looked out of the window and saw a person he had seen before. The young man in the past had grown into an elegant young master. Under the care of Fang Jun, his official career was smooth sailing. Did you save a child in Subei? Shin Yu turned back and looked at Ji Wuwang. The young man who was brought back by Fang Jun from Subei, could it be that he was saved by Ji Wuang? I have indeed been to Subei before. It was many years ago in search of your mother's whereabouts. At that time, Subei was very chaotic. I saved many people along the way. I don't know if the person you're talking about is among them. It was a long time ago. Saving people was just a matter of convenience for Ji Wuang at that time. He could not say who he saved now. Let me think. I did save a small child at that time. Did that child survive? Did you see him? Ji Wuang felt that Shen Yu would not ask this question for no reason. In a chaotic world, it was very difficult for a child who had no one to rely on to survive. If he really survived and met Shen Yu, it must be a great fate. I did. He thought that I was the person who saved him. Now he has a position in the imperial court and is appreciated by official Fang. He has a bright future. Do you want to see him? Ji Wuang thought for a while and nodded. He wanted to know what the child he saved was like now. Shang Junlin called the hidden dragon guards to invite that person over. After the meal, Shen Yu and Shang Junlin left to give the two people some space. So that person was Ji Wuang. Shen Yu sighed. He was mistaken for you. That person looks similar to a Yu. It is not strange that he is a Yu's brother. Shang Junlin said. Shen Yu turned around and looked at the Yingxing Tower. Back then, we first met Jiang Huiqing, He Qingyu, and Fang Jie in the Yingxing Tower. In the blink of an eye, they have already gained a foothold in the imperial court and are realizing their dreams step by step. With Fang Jie in the lead, there are many women who came to participate in the imperial examination this year. The opportunity had been given. It was up to them to see how far they could go. Shen Yu and Shang Junlin did not return to the palace. Instead, they went to Shen Yu's villa. The book they bought from the bookstall was already placed on the desk. Shen Yu walked over and opened the box. There is a collector's edition. Your Majesty, have you seen it before? Shang Junlin shook his head. Shen Yu was very curious about the contents of the book. He asked Shang Junlin to open the book and read it page by page. There was a painting beside the words. It was half hidden and half hidden. Coupled with the words beside it, one could not help but be immersed in the painting. Although the names were different, Shen Yu knew that the content of the book was about him and Shang Junlin. This knowledge greatly magnified the embarrassment in his heart. The young man's face became redder and redder. His fingertips on the page turned crimson. Especially at this moment, he was still in the man's arms. Shen Yu only felt that it was getting hotter and hotter. It was as if a fire was burning from the inside out. In fact, the content was not explicit. However, the author's writing was so good that he could not help but blush. Your Majesty. Don't read it. Feeling something, Shen Yu panicked and pressed the book. Are you going to call me him even when we are outside? The man's voice was low and hoarse. If one listened carefully, there seemed to be a hint of bitterness. Shen Yu suddenly widened his eyes. What? Now that we are not in the palace, you can only look at me and call me by my name, okay? The man's forehead was pressed against Shen Yu's back. The warmth came through his clothes. Shen Yu reacted. Wasn't this the content they had just read in the book? In the book, Her Majesty, who had lost her memory, did not know her identity. She thought that Her Majesty had someone else in her heart. From time to time, she would be jealous of her. Outside the book, Shen Yu was held in the warm arms of the man. He was pleading over and over again. Could he look at him? He was like a lover who was raised outside and could not see the light of day. He longed for his lover's pity. Ever since Yu entered the palace, he hasn't come to see me for a long time. You also loves me, okay? He looked even more pitiful. "Ah, Lin, what are you doing?" Shin Yu exclaimed. He was pressed against the bed by the man. Shang Junlin supported Shin Yu's face with one hand and caressed Shin Yu's face with the other hand. He rubbed it intimately. "You has become more beautiful after not seeing you for a while. You know that it's not easy for me to come out. Why are you still making a fuss with me?" Since Shang Junlin wanted to act, Shin Yu was happy to accompany him. "I just want to see you more." The man lowered his eyes. "I want to hug you more." Shin Yu raised his hand and stroked the back of the man's neck. He comforted, "Am I not here to see you? I won't forget you." The man's hand kept moving downwards, causing a shiver. There were still red marks on her snow-white and delicate skin. The man's gaze swept across her, and his eyes became darker and darker. "I will cover all the marks he left behind, okay?" As he spoke, his hot breath sprayed on her skin. Shin Yu's body trembled. "Only leave my marks." The man lowered his head. Shin Yu gasped, "Don't, what? You doesn't want to." The man's voice was filled with jealousy. "You still say that you don't care about him." "I don't." Shin Yu didn't know what Shang Junlin was doing to him, but now he was neither moving up nor down. He was very uncomfortable, and even his voice was trembling. "What do you want to do?" "I want to keep you." The man's slender fingers stroked the marks one by one. "I want to leave only my marks on this." The faded marks were dyed red one by one, covering another person's breath one by one. The young man seemed to be resisting, but also seemed to be unable to bear it. He couldn't help but hide to the side. Soon, he was pulled back. "Where do you want to hide?" The man's arms were strong and firmly shackled the person in his arms. Shin Yu was in his arms and couldn't escape. "I don't want to hide." Under the gravity, his voice even sounded like he was crying. This made the man even more excited. He hugged the young man in his arms tightly and left a string of kisses on his face. Shin Yu liked the feeling of kissing. When he felt another person's warmth on his lips, he couldn't help but chase after him. His behavior pleased the man. The man moderated his strength to give Shin Yu time to adapt. The kiss gradually became stronger. The wind set off stormy waves, and the lonely boat rose and fell with the waves. You can only be mine. Not me, but me. It has nothing to do with identity, it's just me. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, Biku50. CC. Chapter 254. The people of the Imperial Hospital found that Imperial Physician Gu's state was not quite right recently. He would be distracted from time to time, and almost mix up the herbs when organizing them. These things would never happen in the past. Imperial Physician Gu was greatly respected by the Imperial physicians and apprentices of the Imperial Hospital. On one hand, his medical skills were outstanding. On the other hand, he never put on airs and was willing to teach others. Everyone was worried about Imperial Physician Gu's situation. Imperial Physician Qian and Imperial Physician Gu were close and everyone went to ask about the situation. There was a pavilion in the Imperial Hospital for people to rest. Imperial Physician Qian invited Imperial Physician Gu here. There were fruits and tea on the stone table. When Imperial Physician Gu came close, he was welcomed into the pavilion by Imperial Physician Qian. No matter how busy you are, you cannot spend all your time in the medicine room. This was one of the areas where Imperial Physician Gu's behavior was not right. In this period of time, he had spent almost all his time in the Imperial Hospital. When General Gu Huai had returned to Jing, he had been on duty on time. I know. Why did Shi Xiang call me here? Gu Chong sat opposite Imperial Physician Qian. He was half a teacher to Imperial Physician Wu, so he called Imperial Physician Wu's disciple Shi Xiang. You don't look like you know. The entire Imperial Hospital knows that your state is not right in this period of time. Has something happened that is hard to solve? Imperial Physician Qian had a worried expression. If there is something, you can say it. Everyone can think of a way to solve it. Is it so obvious? Gu Chong finally realized that everyone had seen it. It is very obvious. Imperial Physician Qian poured a cup of hot tea and handed it to Gu Chong. Don't be in a hurry to refuse. If it is a small matter, you would not be so obvious. If it is a difficult matter, and we have no solution, we can go to the palace to beg the emperor. There will be a way. It really isn't a major matter, just a private matter. Gu Chong hadn't thought that his behavior would be so worrisome. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But because it involves someone close to me, I can't make a decision. There is no need to disturb the emperor. What Gu Chong did not say was that when he went to the palace to take the emperor's pulse, the emperor had also asked this question. But he thought it was good to take care of his own matters. Also, this matter involved Gu Huai. Gu Huai. Thinking of this name, Gu Chong had a headache. He didn't know if there was something wrong with his teaching, causing this child to have thoughts about him that he shouldn't have. He had a bright future ahead of him, the Lin family's case had been overturned, and everything was going in the right direction. Yet, something like this happened. Gu Chong couldn't help but recall what had happened that day. As usual, he was making medicine in the pharmacy at home when Gu Huai suddenly barged in and hugged him from behind. At that time, Gu Chong didn't feel anything was wrong. Ever since he picked Gu Huai up, he and Gu Huai had become close friends. Gu Huai liked to hug him from behind when he was young. When he was younger, Gu Huai was very insecure due to his childhood experiences. He often woke up in the middle of the night and fell ill. At that time, Gu Huai would stay by his side the whole night. When he was about to wake up, Gu Chong would gently pat him on the back and coax him back to sleep. He didn't think much of it. He patted his grown brother's head and asked, "What's wrong?" "I miss you." Gu Huai's voice was muffled. "Why are you still acting like a spoiled child at this age?" Gu Chong smelled alcohol. "Have you been drinking?" "A little." Gu Huai rubbed against the back of Gu Chong's neck like a big puppy. Gu Chong felt itchy and couldn't help but move aside. He didn't see the intense emotions in the man's eyes because of his movement. "Why are you avoiding me?" The man's voice turned cold. Gu Chong didn't notice it. He thought Gu Huai was feeling unwell after drinking. He comforted him. "You're making me itchy. Are you uncomfortable? I'll make you a bowl of hangover soup." "I'm not uncomfortable." "Don't go." Feeling Gu Huai was about to leave, Gu Huai tightened his arms. Gu Chong had no choice but to let him hold him for a while. However, Gu Huai didn't intend to let go. Gu Chong sighed and said, "Let go of me first. I'll clean up here and then we'll go out together." "I'll go with you." Gu Huai seemed to realize that he was in trouble. His voice was low. "No need. You can wait for me." Gu Chong was almost done. Even if Gu Huai didn't come, he would have packed up and left in a while. Gu Huai hugged the person in his arms for a while and reluctantly let go. Gu Chong quickly packed up his things, took Gu Huai, who was following closely behind him, and walked out. He led Gu Huai to his room and put him on the bed. Gu Chong wanted to pour a glass of hot water for Gu Huai, but Gu Huai wouldn't let go. "I'll get you a glass of hot water." Gu Huai shook his head. "I don't drink." The tall man sat on the edge of the bed and looked at him like a big dog afraid of being abandoned. Gu Chong surrendered and walked to Gu Huai and sat down. How much did you drink? Why did he feel that he was drunk? Gu Huai tilted his head and leaned on Gu Chong's shoulder. Brother, did someone ask for your hand in marriage today? There was nothing strange in his tone. His eyelids drooped, hiding the surging anger in his eyes. He knew that his brother was obsessed with medicine and had no interest in love. It would be an extravagant hope for his brother's feelings to be reciprocated. He didn't intend to force it. As long as they could stay like before, with no one between him and his brother, it would be fine. He would always be a good brother and shelter his brother from the wind and rain. He thought that was enough. However, he underestimated himself. The human heart was never satisfied. As long as he thought that one day, there would be a woman who would be intimate with his brother, he couldn't control the jealousy in his heart. He had nothing in his life except his brother. No matter what, he couldn't watch such a thing happen. Because he had nothing, he wanted to hold on to the only thing he had. His brother was too outstanding. This excellence would be seen by more and more people. Of course, part of this was because of him. His relationship with his brother was good. It was no secret in the capital. Those people thought that by marrying his brother, they would be able to establish a relationship with him. As he rose in the court, there would be more and more people like this. Yes, but I rejected them. Xiao Huai, are you unhappy because of this? Gu Chong suddenly remembered that he had noticed this before. That was many years ago. Gu Huai was just a powerless youth. He didn't have a firm foothold in the imperial hospital. Unlike now, who in the court didn't know that he had cured the empress's illness and was highly valued by the emperor and the empress. No one dared to make trouble for him. At that time, a young lady from an official's family had taken a fancy to his appearance and sent someone to be a matchmaker. After she was rejected, she tried to use her power to pressure him and force him to submit. It wasn't until the young lady's father was exposed for corruption that the matter was resolved. Gu Chong thought that Gu Huai was traumatized by this incident and comforted him. That kind of thing won't happen again. Xiao Huai, you're a general now. No one will force me to do anything. I know. Gu Huai closed his eyes. Brother, don't get married. Don't abandon me. No, Gu Chong patted his back. Xiao Huai is young and promising. I'm afraid that soon, there will be an endless stream of people coming to propose marriage. When Xiao Huai gets married, no. Before Gu Chong could finish, Gu Huai hurriedly interrupted, there won't be such a day. Xiao Huai will get married. You're the only bloodline left in the Lin family, brother, I won't get married. Gu Chong's words were interrupted again. Hearing the anger in Gu Huai's voice, Gu Chong softened his tone, all right, don't get married. Xiao Huai can do whatever he wants. These words seemed to give Gu Huai unlimited courage. He sat up straight and looked at Gu Chong, whatever I want. His gaze gave Gu Chong a strange feeling. Before he could speak, Gu Huai spoke first. What if I say, I want to be with brother forever? Won't we always be together? No, what I mean is, like His Majesty and the Empress together. Brother, I like you. The kind of like that I want to marry you. The man's eyes were burning. Gu Chong didn't see a trace of joking in them. He opened his mouth but found that he couldn't say a word. After a long while, he heard his own voice, Xiao Huai, you're just too dependent on me. You can't differentiate between different kinds of feelings. You'll understand in the future that these are different. Gu Huai stared at Gu Chong, the fire in his eyes seemed to set him on fire. No, brother, I'm very clear. If it's a normal brotherly love, would the younger brother want to kiss the older brother? Would he only think of the older brother in his dreams? Would he want to press the older brother down on the bed? Don't say any more. Gu Chong awkwardly turned his face away. His face was dyed red. Gu Huai's eyes darkened. He closed his eyes and restrained his aggressiveness. I won't force you to make a decision. I just want you to know what kind of feelings I have for you. If you can accept it, I'll naturally be happy. If you can't, I hope you won't distance yourself from me. I'll always be your obedient younger brother. Gu Chong was very embarrassed. He casually said a few words and hurriedly left. This time, Gu Huai didn't stop him. Gu Chong was still a bit embarrassed after being pulled out of his memories. How could he talk about this kind of thing to others? Seeing that he didn't want to talk about it, Imperial Physician Qian didn't make things difficult. I know you have your own ideas. If you can't solve it, you can tell us. After that, Imperial Physician Qian took the initiative to change the topic and talk about medicine. Gradually, Gu Chong was immersed in it and forgot about his previous awkwardness. In the blink of an eye, it was time to go off duty. Gu Chong packed his things and felt a bit awkward. He admitted that he was hiding from Gu Huai. Ever since Gu Huai revealed his feelings for him that night, he didn't know how to interact with him. He simply found an excuse to stay in the Imperial Physicians' Hospital. But now that his colleagues in the Imperial Physicians' Hospital could see that something was wrong with him, he couldn't continue to hide like this. It was snowing. It often snowed in Dahuan's capital during winter. Gu Chong walked out of the Imperial Physicians' Hospital, thinking about how to spend the next 2 days. His gaze landed on a certain spot and suddenly paused. A tall man stood not far away with an umbrella, silently looking at him. There was a layer of snow on the umbrella. Gu Chong didn't know how long he had been standing there. His heartache suppressed his other emotions. Gu Chong hurriedly walked over and grabbed the hand holding the umbrella. How long have you been standing here? Are you cold? Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, Biku50. CC. Chapter 255. The skin under his palm was cold. Gu Chong rubbed it for a while. You're a great general. Why wait outside? After all, he was the one who raised him. How could he not feel bad? Besides, other than that day, Gu Huai had always been obedient. He was a typical younger brother. Gu Chong was always glad to have such a person by his side. I'm afraid that you don't want to see me, Gu Huai replied in a low voice. I won't. Gu Chong sighed. He just didn't know how to face it. He didn't get angry at Gu Huai because of this. It's cold outside. Let's go home first, brother. Gu Huai walked over with Gu Chong. There was a carriage parked not far away. Gu Chong was touched by the words, "Go home." He followed Gu Huai into the carriage. Along the way, Gu Huai automatically kept a distance from Gu Chong, not crossing the line at all. The Imperial Academy of Medicine was not far from the Gu family. The carriage stopped and Gu Huai got off first. When Gu Chong got off, the snow above his head was blocked by a large umbrella. His bony hands held the umbrella handle. These hands were used to hold swords, but now they were willing to hold the umbrella for him. His movements were so familiar. Gu Chong suddenly realized that the child who needed his protection had grown up. He was standing in front of him, sheltering him from the wind and rain. The roles had changed. He went from being the protector to being protected. Brother, be careful. As he thought about this, Gu Chong stumbled and was supported by someone. The man's strong arm wrapped around his waist to help him stand firm. Gu Chong's ears turned red as the man's cold aura hit him. He was already an adult, but he almost fell while walking. Gu Chong was embarrassed. He wanted to say something, but Gu Huai had already let go of his hand. Silence spread between the two. Gu Chong pushed the door open and walked in. After a few steps, he turned around. The tall man stood outside the door with an umbrella in his hand, watching Gu Chong leave. He was like a dog abandoned by its owner. "Why don't you come in?" Gu Chong had to admit that he couldn't harden his heart towards Gu Huai. "Brother, are you still willing to let me in?" Gu Huai's eyes lit up. Seeing Gu Huai's cautious and hopeful eyes, Gu Chong's heart softened. This was the child he had raised. Even if he had made a mistake, he could not bear to punish him. Moreover, he had not done anything wrong. He had just fallen in love with him. "No matter what happens, this will always be your home," Gu Chong said calmly, suppressing his thoughts. He and Gu Huai were not family, but they were family. For the past few days, he could not help but wonder why Gu Huai would fall in love with him. Putting aside the fact that they were both men, when he was with Gu Huai, he had always treated Gu Huai like a younger brother. Could it be that Gu Huai had misunderstood something and developed such feelings for him? Gu Chong made a decision in his heart. He would find a time to make it clear to Gu Huai that he would always be Gu Huai's brother. Nothing else. The two lived in peace for a period of time and tacitly did not bring up that topic again. Everything seemed to have returned to the past. The waves caused by the confession had calmed down. However, this was only what it looked like. When they were together, it was impossible to act as if nothing had happened. Gu Huai could feel that Gu Chong was consciously distancing himself from him. It was not the kind of distance where he wanted to distance himself from him. Instead, it was the kind of distance where he wanted to pull him onto the right track and avoid intimacy. Although Gu Huai was right in front of him, there seemed to be an invisible barrier between the two of them, preventing him from touching the real person. After that day, Gu Huai also wondered if he should not have brought up this matter. However, he was unwilling. He did not want to see another intimate person appear by his brother's side one day. Whenever he thought that his brother's gaze and gentleness would be on that person, he would go crazy with jealousy. He could not bear the possible consequences. Therefore, he had to let his brother know his feelings. Without destruction, there would be no construction. Only by bringing up the matter could it develop in the direction he wanted. As the end of the year approached, Gu Chong and Gu Huai went to buy the things they would need for the new year. In the past, they had done it together. Gu Chong was in charge of choosing and Gu Huai was in charge of carrying things. Seeing a ready-made clothing store, Gu Chong pulled Gu Huai into it. This year, Gu Huai had grown a lot taller. Gu Chong had also made great contributions to the Empress and received many rewards. He had accumulated a lot of savings and wanted to make some new clothes for Gu Huai. Gu Huai saw Gu Chong signal to the store staff to take his measurements. He asked, "Brother, are you going to make new clothes for me?" "Yes." "You're growing fast. After spring, many of your old clothes can't be worn anymore. Since you're free now, let's make a few more. Brother, don't just focus on me. Make some for yourself too." In the end, both of them made a lot. After setting a date to collect the clothes, the two were happily sent out by the store owner who had received a large order. "Customers, don't worry. My store has made clothes for many high officials and nobles. The quality and style are guaranteed." After walking for a while, Gu Huai slowly came over. "Brother, what's wrong?" Gu Chong was in a good mood. "Brother, do you want to take a look at the mansion His Majesty gave me?" That was the Lin family's mansion. After it was given to Gu Huai, the emperor had ordered people to renovate it. Gu Chong had only been there at the beginning. Later, Gu Huai himself lived in the Gu family and would not go there. After coaxing and pestering, Gu Chong agreed to take a look at Gu Huai. "After it was renovated, I always wanted to take you here." Gu Huai led Gu Chong inside. The general's mansion was solemn. Walking inside, Gu Chong suddenly felt like time was passing. This is the martial arts field. His Majesty asked me what style I wanted. I thought that there were very few traces left of the Lin family, so I hoped to restore it as much as possible. It's a pity that I was too young when the Lin family got into trouble. Many of my memories are blurry. This place is different from the Lin family of the past. Gu Huai's voice gradually became downcast. As long as you're here, the Lin family will still be here. His Majesty has overturned the case for the Lin family. The Lin family's honor will still be there. Gu Chong comforted him. The two sat at the edge of the martial arts field and looked at the empty field. It was as if they were looking at the lively scene of the Lin family through time. Father would practice martial arts here every day. Occasionally, Mother would bring me here to see him. She would tell me that in the future, I would become a great general like Father. I would risk my life for the Great Huan Kingdom. Father always told me that a general's greatest glory was to die on the battlefield, but the Lin family had been loyal for generations. In the end, they were framed by treacherous officials. Although they died on the battlefield, they didn't die at the hands of the enemy. They lost their lives in the conspiracy of their own people. It's all in the past. Gu Chong patted Gu Huai's head. The wicked have been punished. The good have been vindicated. Everyone has returned to their rightful place. In the past, I was really scared. When I was sent away, I fainted. When I woke up, my dignified father, my mother who loved me dearly, my big sister who would make me laugh. Everything, including the Lin family, was gone. For a long time, I thought I was dreaming. When I woke up, my father, mother, and the Lin family were still there. My mother would gently tell me, "Don't be afraid. It's just a nightmare." Gu Huai's tone was calm. But it was this calmness that made Gu Chong unable to bear it. Whoever raised a child would love him dearly. Gu Chong felt terrible that such a thing had happened to him at such a young age. This was the first time Gu Huai had spoken of his childhood. Gu Chong's heart tightened. Calculating the time, when he found Gu Huai, it had been some time since the Lin family's destruction. He didn't dare to imagine how a child like Gu Huai had lived before he found him. Gu Huai's hand was at his side. Gu Chong reached out to cover it, as if he wanted to warm this person up. Gu Chong turned to look at him. The man's side profile was handsome and firm. The current Gu Huai, compared to when he was first picked up, had really changed a lot. Gu Chong sighed in his heart. This was a child he had raised single-handedly. From a thin and sickly child, he had grown into a handsome man. His eyes were filled with pity and emotions that he didn't even realize. Gu Huai felt it. His lips curled up slightly. "Brother, do you remember? For a long time, I didn't dare to sleep alone. I wasn't timid, I was afraid. I was afraid that when I woke up, I would be alone again. At that time, I only had you. I was afraid that you would be gone when I woke up." Of course Gu Chong remembered. At that time, he was also poor. He had prepared a small bed for Gu Huai. Who would have thought that when he woke up in the middle of the night, he would find a small figure curled up beside him? After asking, he found out that the child often came to him in the middle of the night and left before he woke up. No wonder he didn't notice. "When I asked you, you only said you were afraid of the dark. I didn't know, this has nothing to do with you." Gu Huai interrupted Gu Chong. "It's me who didn't tell you. How did you survive before you met me? Didn't you have servants to protect you? How did you end up in such a sorry state?" Gu Chong remembered clearly that when he found Gu Huai, there was no adult by his side. On a rainy night, a child in tattered clothes had collapsed beside the house he rented at the time, suffering from a high fever. If he hadn't met him, he wouldn't have survived so easily. Something happened. A few people were disloyal and wanted to hand me over for a reward. I saw through them and escaped under the protection of a few loyal servants. Gu Huai made light of the situation, but the actual situation was far more dangerous than he made it out to be. At that time, someone leaked the news and the people who were supposed to help them were replaced. There weren't many people protecting him to begin with. It was a close shave that allowed him to escape from those people. Those who protected him were all dead. In the end, he was the only one left. He didn't want to accept his fate. He was protected by the Lin family. No matter how difficult it was, he wanted to live. Only by living could he have a chance to take revenge. Those people poured basin after basin of dirty water on the Lin family. The souls of those who died in vain were wailing, but Gu Huai could do nothing. He could only protect himself, gather strength little by little, and wait for the best time to counterattack. He fell into the abyss in that fire and was pulled back to the human world by a pair of tender hands on a rainy night. He didn't want to implicate Gu Chong because of him, so he had to be very careful. Fortunately, Gu Chong didn't get involved in danger because of him. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, biku50. CC. Chapter 256. Under such circumstances, Gu Chong could not help but nod in agreement. Gu Huai was very happy, his face overflowing with joy. Gu Chong watched, seeing him emerge from his childhood memories, and smiled faintly. "Brother, don't hide from me anymore." Gu Huai suddenly turned around and hugged Gu Chong. Gu Chong instinctively wanted to push him away. Sensing his intention, Gu Huai said dejectedly, "Can't I even be close to my brother now? You used to let me hug you." Hearing the faint reproach in Gu Huai's tone, Gu Chong could not help but reflect on himself. Had he overreacted? Gu Huai had been clingy since he was young. Would his alienation have a bad influence on the child? Moreover, Gu Huai was just hugging him, there was nothing wrong with him. He was his only family, hugging him would not hurt him. Feeling Gu Chong's loosening, Gu Huai's lips curled up. Gu Huai hugged Gu Huai. Gu Chong could not see his expression, but he felt that this hug was very warm. Gu Huai did not have a family, and neither did he. Gu Huai was greedy for his warmth, and he also needed Gu Huai to entrust his feelings. He and Gu Huai were like two entwined vines, inseparable. "All right, you've hugged for long enough. Let go." After some time, Gu Chong spoke. Gu Huai obediently let go. "Brother, let me show you my sword." The training field was fully equipped. Gu Huai stood up, took the long sword, and walked to the middle of the field. Gu Chong sat below, looking at the tall man. As they rose and fell, they both carried an extraordinary aura. It was as if he saw a young boy growing up bit by bit with the sword. This was the child he raised, and also his only family. Gu Huai's excellence made Gu Chong proud. After a day at the general's residence, their relationship was no longer stiff. Gu Chong no longer avoided Gu Huai intentionally or unintentionally. Everything seemed to have returned to the time when Gu Huai had not expressed his feelings. However, both of them knew that some things had quietly changed. The two spent the new year together. When Gu Huai was not busy, he would go to the Imperial Academy of Medicine to wait for Gu Chong to finish his duty as usual. Then they would go home together. On the days off, Gu Huai would help Gu Chong take care of the herbs at home. The courtyard where they lived had a special place to grow herbs. Before Gu Huai became an official, he took care of a lot of things. After Gu Huai became an official, in order to not tire his brother out, he sent a few meticulous and reliable servants to take care of the medicinal fields. Brother, you just need to focus on your medical studies. Leave these menial tasks to the servants. These were Gu Huai's words at that time. With the arrival of spring, the planted medicinal plants sprouted. As the weather warmed up, they gradually grew. Early in the morning, Gu Chong waited for a long time, but Gu Huai, who had agreed to go out with him, did not appear. He went to the courtyard to look for him. Xiao Huai, you. Gu Chong suddenly paused when he saw the person in the courtyard. By the well, Gu Huai was bare-chested and pouring water on himself. The young man's skin texture was very beautiful. The water droplets meandered down his muscles. It was a lively scene. Caught off guard, Gu Chong quickly averted his gaze, but the image still formed in his mind. It turned out that in a place he did not notice, Xiao Huai had grown into a real man. At this moment, Gu Chong clearly realized that the brother he spent time with was no longer the weak youth who needed his protection, but an adult who could shelter him from the wind and rain. Brother, why are you here? Did I keep you waiting for too long? Gu Huai broke the silence. I just sweated from practicing martial arts. I wanted to wash up before going to find you. Seeing the redness spreading from Gu Chong's neck, Gu Huai touched the roof of his mouth with the tip of his tongue. Brother, wait for me for a while. Accompanying Gu Huai's voice was the sound of water splashing and the rustling sound of fabric rubbing against each other. Gu Chong stood where he was, not knowing whether to leave or not. He did not know where to look. I'll wait for you outside. Brother, don't go. I'll be done soon. After waiting for a while, the sound of footsteps approached. Gu Huai walked to Gu Chong's side. Brother, I'm done. After being blown by the cold wind for a while, the heat on Gu Chong's face subsided. Gu Huai looked at Gu Chong's recovered face and a trace of regret flashed through his eyes. Gu Chong turned to look at Gu Huai. The man's face did not change. Gu Chong could only suppress the strange feeling in his heart and pretend nothing had happened. The two went out and got on the carriage, heading straight out of the capital. A few days ago, Gu Chong heard from his colleagues in the Imperial Academy of Medicine that a rare medicinal herb had appeared on a mountain outside the capital. They were going there for this herb. The mountain was quiet and secluded. Gu Chong and Gu Huai walked on an unopened path. As they walked, Gu Huai brushed away the branches and leaves blocking the way for Gu Chong. The sun was rising and they were getting closer to their destination. Gu Chong was sweating. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and asked, Xiao Huai, do you want to rest? Brother, drink some water. Gu Huai took out a water bottle and handed it to Gu Chong. Gu Chong took it and drank a few mouthfuls. The two rested for a while and continued walking. Not long after, they arrived at the place where the herb grew. Gu Chong saw that a few of the herbs were not in good condition and wanted to bring them back to see if they could be saved. He told Gu Huai and went to dig for the herbs. Brother, be careful. Gu Chong dug seriously and did not notice that a colorful poisonous snake was getting closer and closer to him. Hearing Gu Huai's voice, he subconsciously turned around and looked at the poisonous snake hanging on the branch. It was too close. Gu Chong recognized this type of snake. It was very poisonous. If he was bitten and did not treat it in time, he would most likely lose his life. Fear overpowered all reactions. He froze in place, afraid that any movement would cause the snake to attack. As he was thinking about how to avoid the snake's attack, a branch shot straight at him and pierced through the snake's body, nailing it to the tree trunk. It was Gu Huai. Gu Huai quickly ran to Gu Chong's side and pulled him aside. Only when he was sure that Gu Chong was fine did he let out a sigh of relief. Gu Huai held Gu Chong tightly in his arms. He raised his hand with difficulty and patted the man's back, I'm fine. Don't be afraid. I'm fine now. Gu Huai did not say anything. His heart was still beating wildly. When he found that the snake was too close to Gu Chong, his hands were shaking. He had never been so scared before. After this incident, it was already late. Gu Chong packed up and went down the mountain with Gu Huai. He knew that Gu Huai was frightened. When he was held, he felt the man's body trembling. On the way back, Gu Huai held Gu Chong's hand and said in a low voice, "Brother, don't do such a dangerous thing next time. If you need any herbs, let me know. I'll get someone to pick them." "Okay." Gu Chong touched Gu Huai's head. He was just frightened at the time. Now he was fine. He had brought the snake back. The more poisonous the snake, the better the effect of the medicine. On the other hand, Gu Huai was still scared. In fact, before coming this time, Gu Huai had asked others to come. It was Gu Chong who insisted. Gu Huai could not persuade him and had to come along. Gu Chong didn't expect to encounter such a thing. After returning home, Gu Chong made Gu Huai a calming medicine and watched him take it. "Rest for a while. I'll go outside and clean up." "I'll go with you." Gu Huai followed behind Gu Chong like a little tail. He was very anxious and did not want Gu Chong to leave his sight. After this incident, Gu Chong found that Gu Huai was even more clingy to him. If not for Gu Chong's insistence, Gu Huai would have clung to him even at night. The moonlight shone on the ground. Gu Chong heard the sound of water. He followed the sound and saw Gu Huai waving at him from the water. Under the moonlight, everything was hazy and unpredictable. Gu Chong did not know why Gu Huai was in the water. He could not help but step in and walk to the man. "Brother," skin to skin, Gu Chong felt the firm muscles on Gu Huai's body. The man's low and hoarse voice sounded in his ears. Their fingers lingered and water droplets slid down. His body was getting hotter and hotter. The surrounding environment had changed. He lay under Gu Huai and kissed the direction of the water droplets. "Brother, do you like it?" Gu Chong's mind buzzed and he suddenly opened his eyes. So it was a dream. But why would he have such a dream? Gu Chong sat up with a wooden face. He was not an ignorant teenager. Of course, he knew what such a dream meant. He just could not understand why he had such a strange dream. The main characters in the dream were still Gu Huai and himself. His first reaction was that he was glad that he did not agree to Gu Huai's request to sleep with him. Gu Chong got up silently and changed into clean clothes. He threw away the dirty clothes. Out of sight, out of mind. Gu Huai found that Gu Chong was avoiding him again. But this time, there was a slight difference. He was not avoiding anything. He was just being awkward. He was considerate and did not ask much. He continued to get along with Gu Chong as before. Gu Chong was embarrassed for a few days. He tried not to show any abnormalities in their daily interactions. One day, Gu Chong was stopped by an imperial physician in the imperial hospital. Someone had asked him to ask for Gu Chong's opinion. They wanted to matchmake Gu Huai and his youngest daughter. Lord Yao only has this one daughter in his family. She's intelligent and well-mannered. Gu Chong knew that with Gu Huai's age and ability, this day would come sooner or later. But he did not expect it to come so soon. Later, Gu Huai came back from his shift. Seeing Gu Chong waiting for him in the courtyard, he smiled and walked over. "Brother, are you waiting for me? There is something I want to talk to you about." Gu Chong chose his tone carefully. "What do you want to talk to me about?" Gu Huai was curious. "Lord Yao asked someone to find me today. He wants to matchmake you and his youngest daughter. Brother, you agreed?" Gu Huai's face turned cold. How could I agree without asking you? Gu Chong was embarrassed. When Gu Huai confessed to him, he swore that he only saw him as a younger brother. But now, hearing that someone wanted to marry Gu Huai, he actually felt uncomfortable in his heart, as if something that belonged to him was about to be taken away. Brother, you were right not to agree. I don't want anyone else other than you. Gu Huai looked at Gu Chong and said directly. I know. This is your own business. I won't make the decision for you. Hearing Gu Huai's answer, Gu Chong sighed in relief. His subtle change did not escape Gu Huai, who had been observing him. Thinking of a possibility, Gu Huai was startled. He said tentatively, Brother, I don't want to be with anyone else. No matter how good they are, they can't compare to you in my heart. If you can agree to be with me, what nonsense are you talking about? Gu Chong interrupted in a panic. Don't say that again. Gu Huai had an idea. He thought that he would need more time to see the result. He didn't expect it to come sooner than expected. Brother, do you really dislike my feelings? The man lowered his eyes, like a dog afraid of being abandoned by its owner. Dislike it? Gu Chong asked himself honestly. He didn't dislike it. He just, before he could think carefully, a pair of strong arms wrapped around his waist. The man leaned close to his ear. Brother, do you feel disgusted by what I'm doing? Gu Chong shook his head. How about this? Something touched his ear. Gu Chong continued to shake his head. The distance between them kept closing. Gu Huai's eyes darkened. He first kissed Gu Chong's earlobe. When he didn't feel any resistance, he slowly moved on. Cheeks, forehead, nose, all the way down. Finally, his hot breath stopped at his lips. Gu Chong felt his heart beating faster and faster. He didn't know if it was because he was afraid of the kiss or because he was looking forward to it. When their lips touched, a barrier in Gu Chong's heart collapsed. He hugged Gu Huai back. His action gave Gu Huai great encouragement. Gu Huai was overflowing with joy. His arms unconsciously tightened as if he wanted to rub the person in his arms into his body. The kiss was getting crazier. Ugh! Gu Chong's lips hurt and he groaned. This sound woke Gu Huai up. He let go of Gu Huai. Sorry, brother. Gu Chong had time to breathe. He leaned on the man's shoulder and breathed slowly. Gu Huai was still hugging him. He didn't want to let go. His lips lingered on Gu Chong's face, leaving a trail of wet marks. Gu Chong felt that Gu Huai was really like a spoiled and clingy dog. Especially now, it was hard to resist. Brother, try it with me. Gu Chong grabbed his hand and gasped. Don't touch me. If you don't object, I'll take it that you agree. Gu Huai knew Gu Chong's character, so he didn't force him to say it. I'm so happy. Gu Huai kissed him again. Brother, a breeze blew. The two of them, whose hearts were connected, hugged each other tightly. Their clothes were entwined. The rest of their lives were complete. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, Biku50. CC. Chapter 257. On the day he returned to Subei from the northern desert, Jiang Huiqing felt an indescribable sense of unease. He did not know where this feeling came from, nor did he know why. He could not figure it out, so he thought it was because he was homesick. Very few people knew about his movements. This time, only He Qingyu, who had been covering for him, knew about his return. It was already late at night when he arrived. In order not to attract attention, the He residents did not make any big movements. Jiang Huiqing and the hidden dragon guards escorting him entered the He residence in the dark. Brother Qingyu. When Jiang Huiqing entered his courtyard, he saw an unexpected person. Sorry, I cannot hold a welcome banquet for you. Huiqing, you have worked hard. He Qingyu took 2 steps forward, as if he wanted to get closer to Jiang Huiqing, but for some reason, he stopped halfway. There is no need for such trouble. Jiang Huiqing stood in the same spot. I have troubled official He for this period of time. Huiqing, why are you so distant from me? He Qingyu's fingers that were hanging in his sleeves curled up. Jiang Huiqing did not know what to say. They had not seen each other for almost a year. Whether it was He Qingyu or him, they had changed a lot. The man standing in front of him had an imposing aura. Even in the northern desert, he had heard a lot of news about He Qingyu. After taking power in Subei, He Qingyu reorganized the government and reformed the old system. In the shortest time possible, he turned Subei back on the right path. Under his leadership, Subei had begun to flourish. Before they arrived at the He residence, Jiang Huiqing had observed the lives of the people in Subei. Compared to when they had just arrived, it was completely different. Now, the people in Subei lived and worked in peace. They did not have to worry about being attacked by outsiders. They could live their own lives. Everyone had a happy smile on their faces. Everywhere was full of vitality. The man standing in front of him was the one who brought about this change in Subei. Jiang Huiqing had always known that He Qingyu was very outstanding, but he had never expected him to achieve so much in such a short time. Little did he know that half of the reason why He Qingyu could achieve so much was because of him. The two of them looked at each other. It seemed like something had changed, but it also seemed like nothing had changed. He Qingyu struggled to suppress the feelings in his heart. In the end, he was defeated under Jiang Huiqing's gaze. He strode forward quickly, not giving Jiang Huiqing a chance to react, and directly pulled her into his arms. Let him be selfish this time. He Qingyu thought. Huiqing, it's good that you came back safely. A hug dispelled the estrangement between the two of them. Jiang Huiqing's eyes were hot, and he reached out to hug her. I'm back. I miss you, Huiqing. He Qingyu's voice was lower than usual. Jiang Huiqing wanted to see his expression, but he was held in the man's arms and couldn't move, so he had to give up. I miss you too. After being hugged for a while, Jiang Huiqing whispered. He Qingyu was the first person he met who was so compatible with him. They were like-minded, knowledgeable, and had a pleasant conversation. If not for this, Jiang Huiqing wouldn't have gone with He Qingyu just to help him out. He Qingyu's existence filled the gap between Jiang Huiqing and Jiang Huiqing after the death of his teacher. He Qingyu was a close friend to Jiang Huiqing, an older brother, or perhaps, there were other feelings that the master hadn't discovered yet. Can you tell me about the northern desert? After a quarter of an hour, He Qingyu restrained himself and let go of her. Jiang Huiqing was still a little reluctant. He hugged He Qingyu's waist and rubbed his shoulder. Back in Dahuan, he didn't need to be the flawless Mr. Yufeng anymore. He was just him, Jiang Huiqing, a young man who had just entered the officialdom. He didn't need to be perfect. He Qingyu barely stopped himself from hugging Jiang Huiqing again. The joy and excitement in his heart were much more than Jiang Huiqing's. In this year, not only did his feelings for Jiang Huiqing not disappear because they couldn't see each other, but it also deepened his feelings. It's late. Let's go inside first. He Qingyu's voice was slightly hoarse. That's right. It's not good to stand outside all the time. We haven't seen each other for so long. I have a lot to say to you. The two entered the house. The person who played Jiang Huiqing had already left. Jiang Huiqing looked around. The furnishings in the house were the same as when he left. Just tell me if there's anything you want. He Qingyu followed behind him. The decorations here are the same as when you left. If there's anything you don't like, just tell me directly. Everything is to my liking. It's already so late. Brother Qingyu, why don't you go and rest first? After entering the house, Jiang Huiqing realized that it was already late. He was too excited to sleep because he returned to Dehuan, but He Qingyu was not necessarily not sleepy. It's okay. I'm usually busy with work until late. Besides, we haven't seen each other for a long time. I also want to talk to you more. Since He Qingyu said so, Jiang Huiqing didn't refuse anymore. He picked some things that could be said to He Qingyu. After going deep into the northern desert, Jiang Huiqing realized how different the northern desert was from Dehuan. At first, I wasn't used to the lifestyle of the northern desert people. I thought that it would be best if I could come back as soon as possible. Later, I got used to it and felt that it was okay. I had too many things to think about and didn't have the energy to think about other things. Only when the situation stabilized could I breathe a sigh of relief. At that time, I really missed the days in Dehuan. Sometimes, when I encountered something interesting, I always wanted to share it with Brother Qingyu. Unfortunately, at that time, I couldn't even write a letter to Dehuan. There couldn't be any mistakes. I could only silently remember it in my heart. Maybe one day, I could travel the northern desert with Brother Qingyu. He Qingyu's heart softened. He knew that Jiang Huiqing didn't have that kind of feelings for him at the moment. However, this didn't stop him from being happy about it. He was a special person in Jiang Huiqing's heart. This knowledge made He Qingyu's heart boil. He told himself over and over again that he couldn't scare Jiang Huiqing. He had to do it step by step. Most of the time, it was Jiang Huiqing talking and He Qingyu listening. Unknowingly, the outside of the window gradually brightened. The candles burned to the bottom and Jiang Huiqing stopped talking. It's daybreak. After daybreak, everything returned to normal. Jiang Huiqing slowly appeared in front of everyone after recovering from a serious illness. He was still living in the He Manor. He also saw how busy He Qingyu was. A few days later, the imperial court sent a message telling them to prepare to return to the capital. Jiang Huiqing didn't have many things on hand. He Qingyu handed over to the other officials and the two of them stepped on the road back to the capital together. With He Qingyu, Jiang Huiqing didn't find the journey boring. These days, he learned from He Qingyu about what happened in Dehuan in the past year and the various changes in the imperial court. We're here. He Qingyu's voice pulled Jiang Huiqing back from his thoughts. Jiang Huiqing lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked outside. The streets were bustling with people. Compared to when they left, it seemed more prosperous. What are you thinking about? Why are you so lost in thought? Nothing. I just feel a bit unaccustomed to suddenly returning to the capital from the northern desert. Jiang Huiqing lowered the curtain and sat up straight. What's there to be unaccustomed to? He Qingyu smiled and poured him a cup of tea. He handed it to him. This time, His Majesty will probably let you stay in the capital. For many years to come, you will live here. No matter what happens in the northern desert, this is the place where we should work together. Brother Qingyu is right. Jiang Huiqing took the tea and took a sip. I haven't seen you for a year. Brother Qingyu's tea skills have improved. It's good that you didn't disappoint me. The carriage passed through the bustling streets and quiet alleys. It stopped in front of a secluded courtyard. A servant who had already received the news was waiting in front of the courtyard. When he saw the carriage coming, he hurried forward. Sirs, it must have been a tiring journey. Hot water and food have been prepared inside. Sirs, are you, wash up first. He Qingyu, who loved cleanliness, couldn't stand the dust from the journey. After speaking, he helped Jiang Huiqing who was getting off the carriage. Where's Huiqing? I'm also going to wash up first. Along the way, the food was arranged by He Qingyu. It wasn't mealtime now, so Jiang Huiqing wasn't hungry. The servant respectfully led Jiang Huiqing and He Qingyu inside. This courtyard was where they had temporarily stayed to avoid the endless stream of matchmakers. This time, after asking Jiang Huiqing's opinion, they finally decided to stay here first. Their rooms were close to each other. When they reached his room, Jiang Huiqing bid farewell to He Qingyu and entered his own room. The servant quickly prepared the hot water. Jiang Huiqing took off his clothes and soaked in the hot water. He sighed softly. The hot water washed away his tiredness. Jiang Huiqing soaked for a while and reluctantly got out of the bathtub. He changed into a clean set of clothes and went out. He Qingyu had already tidied himself up and stood outside. When he saw Jiang Huiqing coming out, he walked over. Huiqing, do you want to rest at home or go out for a walk? I'll rest for today. I have to go to the palace later. He had to go to the palace and personally report to the emperor about the northern desert. Jiang Huiqing had made a great contribution to the northern desert. He went to the palace and brought back countless rewards. He Qingyu accompanied him to pack up these things. In the future, I'll have to rely on Huiqing to take care of me. Brother Qingyu, what are you talking about? There's no need to be so polite between you and me. After returning to the capital, they didn't have a new position for the time being. After reporting what they had done last year, they had a long break. He Qingyu received a letter from home saying that his sister had found a good husband and had given birth to a son this year. He was now an uncle and asked if he had time to go home. He Qingyu had promised to celebrate the new year with Jiang Huiqing. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Jiang Huiqing didn't know about this because he had an appointment with He Qingyu to buy something. When he didn't see He Qingyu go out, he thought that he was delayed by something and went to find him. He didn't expect to hear the housekeeper talking to an unfamiliar servant in the courtyard. Sir doesn't want to go back. You can reply to the He family and say that Sir is busy this year. We shouldn't interfere in Sir's matters, but this time, there's a new member in the family. Sir should go back and see his own nephew. Previously, when Miss got married, Sir was in Subei and couldn't go back. Master, Madam, and the other young masters and young ladies were all very regretful. This time, I know what you mean, but we can't change Sir's decision. Jiang Huiqing was surprised to hear this news. He recalled that He Qingyu had promised to spend the new year with him. He felt that He Qingyu might have his own reasons for not wanting to leave. After thinking about it, he walked over and asked, "What happened?" The housekeeper knew Jiang Huiqing's position in He Qingyu's heart, and also knew why He Qingyu didn't want to go back. He originally wanted to change the topic, but who would have thought that the other person couldn't hold back and blurted out the truth in a few sentences. After confirming his suspicions, Jiang Huiqing said, "I'll tell Brother Qingyu about this. Don't be in a hurry to reply to the He family. This is an important matter, so we should go back and take a look." "Thank you, Sir Jiang." The servant was overjoyed. Seeing He Qingyu, Jiang Huiqing said bluntly, "Brother Qingyu, did something happen at home?" "It's nothing important." He Qingyu didn't want Jiang Huiqing to know. "I know. Your family sent a letter asking you to go back, so you should go back. Looking at the time, you haven't been back for more than 2 years. You should go back and take a look. You're free this year, otherwise, who knows when you'll have time next time." Jiang Huiqing advised. "I've already promised you. How can a gentleman break his promise?" He Qingyu wasn't moved. "You and I both have matters to attend to. Even if we can't be together this time, there will be many opportunities in the future. If you can't reunite with your family because of me, I will feel uneasy." "But..." He Qingyu seemed to be moved. "Besides, don't you want to go back and see your nephew?" You haven't seen him since he was born, right? Seeing that He Qingyu's expression was becoming more and more relaxed, Jiang Huiqing wanted to continue his persuasion. Unexpectedly, the other party suddenly spoke. How about Huiqing come with me? He Qingyu seemed to think this method was feasible. He continued, this way, I won't fail to live up to my promise to Huiqing. Jiang Huiqing, aw. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, Biku50. CC. Chapter 258. He Qingyu didn't give Jiang Huiqing a chance to refuse and quickly made a decision. By the time Jiang Huiqing reacted, the matter had already been settled. You're going back to see your family. It's not good for me to go, right? Jiang Huiqing tried to make a final struggle. What's not good about it? Huiqing, you said before that you wanted to be my younger brother. Since you and I are brothers, my family is naturally your family. Do you want me to be a person who breaks my promise? He Qingyu said. Jiang Huiqing wanted to say that he really didn't mind being alone. He had been alone for so many years, but this year, he had some expectations and felt that he didn't need to be alone. Now that he had returned to his original state, it was nothing. But when he looked into He Qingyu's eyes, they were filled with anticipation and the master was trying to hide his nervousness. Jiang Huiqing's heart suddenly softened. Brother Qingyu was afraid that he would refuse. In a daze, Jiang Huiqing agreed. He Qingyu's eyes flashed. He quickly ordered the servants to pack up. If they wanted to go back, they had to leave as soon as possible. Jiang Huiqing didn't need to do anything. He Qingyu took care of everything very well. He even packed the luggage and took the carriage to Jiangnan. The He family of Jiangnan had already received the news in advance that He Qingyu was bringing someone back. In order to make Jiang Huiqing feel at ease in the He family, He Qingyu nagged a lot. He Qingyu's father was now the head of the He family. When he received his son's letter, the head of the He family was speechless. Look at your good son's letter. Most of it is telling us not to make his friend feel uncomfortable. He's been away from home for so long, but he doesn't know how to care about us. Madam, he snatched the letter and said disapprovingly, it's not easy for Qingyu to come back. You can't be like before, pulling a long face all the time. It's not easy for him to make friends. Look at all these years, when has he ever cared so much about anyone? That's true. Family head, he rubbed his chin. His letter was full of praises. I want to see if his friend is as good as he says. Qingyu has always had a good eye for people. He wouldn't be deceived. He said that he met this friend when he was rushing to the capital for the imperial examinations. He was young and came third in the imperial examinations. He looked like a good child. Madam, he trusted her eldest son's judgment. Family head, he had a headache and held his forehead. His wife was good in every way, but she liked good-looking children. All these years, family head, he had been jealous a lot because of this. Qingyu said to arrange for the child to stay in his own courtyard. Should we arrange a separate place for the child or do we follow the instructions in the letter? Let's arrange for him to stay in Qingyu's courtyard. His courtyard is big enough. Moreover, the child is unfamiliar with this place. It will be easier to take care of him if he stays with Qingyu. Family head, he felt that Madam He's words were reasonable. Then let's do it this way. They will arrive in a few days. Tell the servants to be more efficient. The distance between the capital and the He family in Jiangnan wasn't too far. Other than the carriage, they still had to take a boat. It was Jiang Huiqing's first time on a boat. It was very refreshing. After getting off the carriage, the group of people arrived at the ferry. Jiang Huiqing saw the big boat docked by the river. His eyes were filled with amazement. Huiqing, do you like it? He Qingyu asked when he felt the change in his son's mood. It's my first time seeing such a big boat. Jiang Huiqing had always lived in the mountains with his teacher, but he had never seen such a big boat before. Jiangnan has a lot of water. When we arrive at the He family, I will take you on a boat tour. The kind of boat that is specially used for sightseeing is quite different from this kind of transport boat. Jiang Huiqing was indeed curious, so he gladly agreed. The group of people boarded the boat. The boat swayed, and Jiang Huiqing's excitement faded. His face became paler and paler. It was Jiang Huiqing's first time on a boat. As expected, he became seasick. Jiang Huiqing leaned on the table. He never knew that seasickness could be so unbearable. He Qingyu touched his forehead. His heart ached. The man's hand was cold. Jiang Huiqing sighed and rubbed his hand against the man's palm. How much longer do we have to sit for? Jiang Huiqing propped himself up and asked. There are still 2.5 days. I have already sent the servants to find medicine. Bear with it. He Qingyu sat down beside Jiang Huiqing. He picked him up and placed him on his shoulder. Jiang Huiqing leaned weakly on He Qingyu's shoulder. You said before that I might get seasick, but I didn't take it seriously. He didn't expect seasickness to be so unbearable. The servants came back with medicine, but it could only alleviate some of the symptoms. Jiang Huiqing still felt uncomfortable. He had no appetite for food. He vomited after eating, so he could only eat porridge. He Qingyu had been by his side the whole time, taking care of him in every detail, making Jiang Huiqing very embarrassed. Raise your head a little. He Qingyu wiped Jiang Huiqing's face with a soaked handkerchief. Jiang Huiqing obediently raised his head. His face was red. Half of it was because of seasickness, and the other half was because of embarrassment. We will arrive in half a day. I didn't think it through and made Huiqing feel uncomfortable. Even though he was so close to the person he liked, seeing Jiang Huiqing's uncomfortable appearance, He Qingyu didn't have the slightest bit of beautiful thoughts. He only wished that he could be in his place. It has nothing to do with Brother Qingyu. Now that he's close to you, his father and I are relieved. It means that he didn't like the people he met before. He didn't have many friends since he was young. If he didn't do well, I hope you can forgive him. If he bullies you in the future, you can write a letter to his father and ask him to teach him a lesson. He didn't bully you. She looked as if she would teach him a lesson if he bullied you. Jiang Huiqing's ears turned red when he heard Madame He's protective words. He quickly said, No, Brother Qingyu is very good. He knows how to take care of people. I was seasick when I came here. Thank you for taking care of me, it's good that you can get along well. Madame He was relieved when she heard that her eldest son knew how to take care of people. He Qingyu came back from outside. When he saw Jiang Huiqing holding his little nephew and talking to Madame He had the illusion that his mother was teaching her how to take care of a child. He Qingyu shook his head to get rid of the unrealistic thought in his mind. He sneered in his heart and thought that he must have been possessed. Jiang Huiqing looked up and saw He Qingyu walking in. Brother Qingyu, you're back. He Qingyu strode in. Jiang Huiqing wanted to show the baby to him. Brother Qingyu, look. The baby is looking for you. The little guy's eyes were round. As soon as He Qingyu came close, the little guy turned around. Jiang Huiqing was shocked. He really knows Brother Qingyu. He Qingyu had just come back from outside. His body was cold, so he couldn't hold the baby. Jiang Huiqing could only hold the baby and play with him from a distance. After holding him for a while, the baby got tired and fell asleep in Jiang Huiqing's arms. Jiang Huiqing handed the baby to the wet nurse. After bidding farewell to Madame He left with He Qingyu. Huiqing likes children. He Qingyu asked when they returned to the courtyard. His heart sank. If Jiang Huiqing really liked children and wanted a child that was related to him by blood, what should he do? Was he willing to let go just like that? He Qingyu asked himself in his heart, and the answer he received was that he was unwilling. He couldn't imagine the scene of Jiang Huiqing marrying and having children in the future. If such a day really came, in order to not do something irrational and harm Jiang Huiqing, he could only take the initiative to leave and stay far away. Huiqing, have you thought about when to get married? There are many officials in the imperial court who want to marry Huiqing. Their daughters are all very outstanding. If Huiqing has any plans, you have to tell me in advance. The jealousy in his heart spread like wild grass, but he didn't show it on his face. Even his tone was normal. He only silently planned in his heart. If that day really came, what should he do? No, he wouldn't allow that day to come. I haven't thought about it. Jiang Huiqing didn't know what dangerous thoughts were in his heart. He lowered his head and felt his face heat up. It's not that I like children. I just feel that he looks like Brother Qingyu. If Brother Qingyu has a child in the future, I think I'll like it very much too. Do you like it because it looks like me? Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, Biku50. CC. Chapter 259. Now was not the time. He Qingyu restrained himself. He had to wait a little longer. He couldn't let his feelings scare Huiqing. Jiang Huiqing had no idea what He Qingyu was thinking. His hand was held by the other party. He struggled slightly but couldn't break free. He stopped moving and asked, "What's wrong, Brother Qingyu?" "Nothing. I'm just thinking that Huiqing's wish won't come true." "What?" Jiang Huiqing took a while to react. He asked tentatively, "Brother Qingyu, you don't plan to get married and have children?" He Qingyu shook his head. "No, I don't." "Why? Does Huiqing want me to get married?" Jiang Huiqing didn't realize that when He Qingyu said the answer, he felt a flash of joy in his heart. However, this emotion dissipated too quickly. Before he could realize it, his attention was attracted by the next sentence. "Does he want Brother Qingyu to get married?" Jiang Huiqing realized that he didn't know the answer. Logically speaking, he should want it, but when he thought of a woman being intimate with He Qingyu, he felt very uncomfortable. Okay, whether Huiqing wants it or not, I won't get married. If I want to get married, it must be to the person I like. If I marry a woman I don't like, it's not good for either of us. Since we don't like each other, why waste your time?" He Qingyu didn't plan to force Jiang Huiqing to say anything. He had finally gained something from this conversation. He had originally thought that Huiqing only treated him as a friend, but now it seemed that he had come to a conclusion too early. Since there were signs, there was no need for him to be impatient. After this conversation, Jiang Huiqing wanted to calm down and think about it. However, reality didn't give him much of a chance. The younger generation of the He family liked him and pestered him with questions from time to time. These juniors ranged from a few years old to over 10 years old. They were all members of the He family. They knew that Jiang Huiqing was the third flower of the last competition and were very curious about him. On the other hand, He Qingyu was the one with whom no one of the younger generation dared to disturb him. This elder brother of his had accumulated a lot of power and influence. How could he be as easy to get along with as the good-tempered and patient Jiang Huiqing? Jiang Huiqing looked at the crowded scene on his side and then looked at He Qingyu's side where no one showed any interest. He suddenly remembered what He Qingyu had said to him, "None of my younger brothers and sisters are close to me." No wonder Brother Qingyu was so good to him. It turned out that no one appreciated his brotherly love, and could only pour it on him. Brother Qingyu was clearly a very competent and good elder brother. Jiang Huiqing felt that he should let the younger generation of the He family know this. Brother Qingyu also yearns for them to be close to each other. Family members do not need to be too distant. Of course, before this matter was completed, it was best not to let Brother Qingyu know. It was just nice to give him a surprise. Picking a day when Qingyu was not around, Jiang Huiqing gathered the little radishes of the He family together and told them about Qingyu. He rambled on a lot, which made the listeners feel more and more strange. Was he describing their dignified elder brother who made people tremble when they got close to him? They were not the same person at all, okay? They did not know why Jiang Huiqing had such an understanding. They looked at each other and felt that they had to expose their elder brother's conspiracy, and let Jiang Huiqing see their elder brother's true colors clearly. Don't be fooled by others and foolishly believe it to be true. After Jiang Huiqing finished speaking, he saw that the expressions of the little radishes around him were not right. He asked, "What's wrong? Why does Brother Jiang think that we don't want to play with our elder brother?" The little radishes pushed each other and pushed a representative out. Of course, Jiang Huiqing would not directly say that it was Qingyu who told him. He said, "It's easy to see that you usually only come to find me and not your elder brother. Brother Jiang, don't be fooled by our elder brother. It's not that we don't go find him, it's that he's too fierce." That's right, that's right. He's even scarier than the teacher. The children all started to complain at once. Originally, Jiang Huiqing wanted to let these children know about Brother Qingyu's intentions. Who would have thought that it would become a gathering of children complaining about their elder brother's evil deeds? Because of this, Jiang Huiqing discovered that his understanding and the truth seemed to be somewhat different. However, he could not figure out why Qingyu would lie to him about this matter. Yes, through the children's complaints, Jiang Huiqing had already realized that Qingyu's words were not true. However, he could not figure out why Qingyu would say such things. Jiang Huiqing decided to find a time to ask. The He family had a large business and many people, so it was very lively. However, this had nothing to do with Jiang Huiqing. He lived in Qingyu's courtyard and no one would disturb him. Qingyu had left home for 2 years. After returning, he had a lot of things to do and often went out. At first, Qingyu was afraid that Jiang Huiqing would not be used to being alone in the He family and wanted to bring him along. However, Jiang Huiqing rejected him. The He family was very easy to get along with. He was not unaccustomed to being here. On the contrary, he felt a warmth that he had never felt before. Seeing that his expression did not seem forced, Qingyu did not insist. Remembering that he had a hot spring villa, Qingyu asked Jiang Huiqing if he wanted to go there. Jiang Huiqing soaked in the hot spring. The hot steam rushed into his body. He sighed softly. There was a wooden tray on the surface of the water. On it were various snacks and drinks. Qingyu poured a glass of wine and handed it to Jiang Huiqing. "This is the best plum wine. Do you want to try it?" Jiang Huiqing took it and took a sip. Qingyu sat beside Jiang Huiqing and turned to look at Jiang Huiqing. The young man's face was faintly pink. It was steamed by the steam or because of the wine he just drank. Qingyu's eyes darkened slightly. It would be a lie to say that he was not moved when his sweetheart sat beside him without any defense. Qingyu silently chanted scriptures in his heart to suppress the possible reaction of his body. "Brother Qingyu, my back is a little itchy. Can you help me?" Jiang Huiqing was a little embarrassed. "I'll help you later." As soon as he finished speaking, the person beside him did not move for a long time. Jiang Huiqing was a little nervous. He wondered if his request was too much. "It's okay if you don't want to do it." "I'm not, no." Qingyu did not wait for him to finish his sentence. But for some reason, his voice was a little hoarse. As he spoke, He Qingyu grabbed Jiang Huiqing's shoulder and turned him so that his back was facing him. Where is it itchy? Back, shoulders. Jiang Huiqing's soaked clothes were removed, and his fair back was exposed. He Qingyu picked up a handkerchief and wiped his back with moderate strength. Jiang Huiqing sat upright for a while. He felt a little tired and lay down by the side of the pool. The steam was so hot that it made him sleepy. Suddenly, Jiang Huiqing felt his waist being touched and could not help but shrink inwards. Don't move. The man's voice seemed to be restraining something. Jiang Huiqing sensed the abnormal atmosphere around him. His body stiffened and he did not dare to move again. Okay, Brother Qingyu, that's enough. This atmosphere made Jiang Huiqing very uneasy. His sleepiness was swept away, but his mind was a mess. He just wanted to get away. Huiqing, his palm was even hotter than the spring water. Wherever he touched, it was as if a fire had been lit and burned. Brother Qingyu, let go of me. I don't want to soak anymore. Jiang Huiqing panicked and wanted to escape. He did not know what had happened to He Qingyu. He was shackled by the man and could not turn back. Naturally, he could not see the intense emotions in the man's eyes. That was the look in the man's eyes when looking at prey, a look that wanted to tear him apart and eat him. He Qingyu closed his eyes. He had to admit that he had overestimated his self-control. When Jiang Huiqing was unguarded and had his back to him, it gave him the illusion that he could do whatever he wanted. They were so close that it was as if he could reach out and pull the other into his arms and get what he wanted. The temptation was too great. It was so great that He Qingyu wanted to take the risk. Jiang Huiqing was not completely without feelings for him, was he? Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, Biku50. CC. Chapter 260. Jiang Huiqing's mind went blank. He didn't even realize that he was in the arms of the man behind him. What was He Qingyu talking about? What did he mean by being in love with him? Did he mishear something? After a long while, Jiang Huiqing said as if he had just woken up from a dream, You're joking, right? Why did he suddenly fall in love with him? Jiang Huiqing couldn't understand. He had always treated He Qingyu as a close friend, confidant, and brother. Didn't He Qingyu treat him the same way? I'm not joking. Huiqing, do you think I'm the kind of person who would joke about such things? He Qingyu's tone was slightly nervous. But at this time, Jiang Huiqing couldn't tell. He was so shocked by this news that he was almost speechless. He and He Qingyu had known each other for many years. Of course, he knew that He Qingyu wouldn't joke about such things. Since it wasn't a joke, then it must be true. Brother Qingyu was in love with him. Jiang Huiqing's mind was in a mess. Jiang Huiqing really didn't know what to say in this situation. His whole body was stiff. He Qingyu hugged him and could feel his reaction. His eyes darkened. Huiqing didn't break free from his arms. Did he not dislike his touch, or did he forget to react because of the shock? What about Huiqing? Do you hate me after knowing my feelings? I hate. Jiang Huiqing asked himself in his heart, and the answer he got was that he didn't hate it. Not only did he not hate it, but he was also secretly surprised. However, this joy was hidden too deep, and he didn't feel it in his current state. Jiang Huiqing shook his head and murmured. I don't hate you. He Qingyu was delighted. He moved forward, and the distance between the two of them instantly shortened. Waves of heat came, and the young man's porcelain white skin was dyed red. The skin under his palm was delicate. He Qingyu loved it so much that he couldn't put it down. His remaining reason warned him not to do anything he shouldn't do. However, with his lover in his arms and in such a position, how could he not have any reaction at all? Qingyu restrained himself and planted a kiss on the side of the young man's face. Jiang Huiqing only felt something wet and warm touched the side of his face. He was dazed for a moment, then suddenly realized what it was, and his face turned red. The feeling just now, was it Brother Qingyu's lips? Was he kissed by Brother Qingyu? His train of thought that had yet to be sorted out became even more chaotic. He did not turn around to confirm. At this time, it was not that Qingyu did not want him to turn around, but he did not know how to face it, so he simply did not look. He couldn't see the love and desire in the eyes of the person behind him. Because he didn't turn around, that gaze was unbridled, sizing him up again and again like a predator looking for prey. The prey had already stepped into the hunter's carefully prepared trap, and was still unaware of it. Brother Qingyu, can you let go of me first? Belatedly, Jiang Huiqing finally realized that there was something wrong with their posture. They were too close, and their hot bodies were pressed against each other. Their thin clothes could not block anything at all, and their body heat was transmitted to each other. Also, there was the pair of hands around his waist. Jiang Huiqing's body was getting hotter and hotter, especially his face. He did not need to look to know how red his face was now. He buried his face in his arms, trying in vain to cool himself down. Qingyu silently let go and stepped back a little. He whispered, "Sorry, I couldn't control myself." After being let go, Jiang Huiqing felt the heat in his body dissipate a little. After what had happened, there was no way to soak in the hot spring. He panicked and wanted to leave. I don't want to soak, Brother Qingyu." His wrist was grabbed. It was not very forceful, but Jiang Huiqing still stopped in his tracks. "Don't hate me, Huiqing." Jiang Huiqing nodded carelessly. Taking advantage of Qingyu's release, he hurriedly ran away. Qingyu stared at Jiang Huiqing's back with a faint gaze. He did not chase after him. He needed to calm down. If he chased after him, who knew what would happen? Jiang Huiqing was hiding from Qingyu. Everyone in the He residence had noticed. Ever since they returned from the hot spring villa that day, it had started. Jiang Huiqing thought that he had covered it up, but he did not know that everyone knew. Even the little radishes who often pestered him to play had noticed that something was wrong. A few of the little radishes gathered together and discussed in private. What happened between Brother Jiang and Big Brother? The two of them have not been together recently. Ever since Jiang Huiqing came to the He residence, except when Qingyu went out to do business, the two of them were almost inseparable. Everyone in the He residence knew how close their relationship was. Is it because we exposed Big Brother's lie last time, so Brother Jiang is angry with Big Brother? Then what should we do? If Big Brother knows, he will definitely punish us. Why don't we say more good things about Big Brother in front of Brother Jiang? We also have to tell Big Brother and let him admit his mistake in time to get Brother Jiang's forgiveness. That's right. After making up their minds, the little radishes divided into two groups and acted separately. The children who were chosen to go to Qingyu's side were pushed to Qingyu's door with a bitter face. Qingyu opened the door and saw the unhappy children standing outside the room. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "What are you doing?" "Big Brother, we are here to apologize." The leading child took a deep breath and quickly told him what happened that day. The teacher said that if you know you are wrong, you are still a good child. Since Big Brother lied to Brother Jiang and made him unhappy, you should apologize. Brother Jiang is such a good person. He will not be angry with Big Brother. As he spoke, he carefully looked at Big Brother's expression. You are right. Qingyu's mind was full of thoughts. You should apologize for doing something wrong. It had been so long. He could not let Huiqing continue to escape. These days, out of consideration for Jiang Huiqing's feelings, He Qingyu did not disturb him much. Jiang Huiqing wanted to avoid him, so he let him. He gave Jiang Huiqing enough time to react. It was time to see the results. Jiang Huiqing listened to the little radishes pleading for He Qingyu and was amused. Just at this time, He Qingyu stepped into the courtyard. "How are you making up stories about me again?" As He Qingyu's voice fell, the courtyard fell into silence. "Big brother." The little radishes stood up and saluted He Qingyu. He Qingyu nodded. "Go play somewhere else for a while. I have something to tell your brother Jiang." The little radishes thought that their big brother was here to apologize and sent them away because he could not forgive them. In the blink of an eye, only Jiang Huiqing and He Qingyu were left in the courtyard. "I'm here to apologize to Huiqing." He Qingyu went straight to the point. He did not expect that He Qingyu really came to apologize. Jiang Huiqing widened his eyes and swallowed the words he wanted to say. "I was wrong. I should not have lied to Huiqing." He Qingyu admitted his mistake so quickly that Jiang Huiqing did not know what to say. "Huiqing, do you want to know why I said that?" "Why?" "Because I wanted Huiqing to dote on me." Jiang Huiqing's face flushed red. He was shocked speechless by He Qingyu's straightforward words. "Huiqing, you may not know, but I was already in love with you at that time. It was not a day or two, but 2 years. I knew that Huiqing was ambitious in the imperial court. I only wanted to be by Huiqing's side like before. I was already very satisfied to be able to occupy the identity of Huiqing's close friend." Another thunderclap struck Jiang Huiqing's heart. Jiang Huiqing was stunned and said blankly, 2 years ago, you already, yes." He Qingyu admitted it without hesitation. "Tell me, you didn't intend to say it. Why did you say it now?" Jiang Huiqing managed to regain his rationality. "Because people are greedy. They can't help but want more. I am no longer satisfied with the identity of a close friend. I want to go further with Huiqing." This day was different from the day they soaked in the hot spring. Jiang Huiqing was facing He Qingyu. He could see the expression on He Qingyu's face the whole time. He could also feel that the other party's gaze was fixed on him. "When did it start?" Jiang Huiqing asked after a moment of silence. "Maybe it started from the first time we met." He Qingyu smiled. When they first met, Jiang Huiqing appeared in He Qingyu's life like the warm winter sun. Since then, he could not let go of this warmth. At first, he thought it was a possessive desire for a friend. Later, he realized that he had never treated Jiang Huiqing as a friend. "What about Huiqing?" He Qingyu approached the young man and brushed the hair on his forehead. "Has Huiqing thought about how to answer me these days?" How could he have thought about it? Jiang Huiqing's mind was a mess. He stood there blankly with a blank expression. "I don't know either." What were his feelings for He Qingyu? During this period, he kept asking himself this question, but he could not find the answer. "That day, were you disgusted?" He Qingyu saw that he was still in a daze and added, "When I kissed you." Jiang Huiqing lowered his eyes and did not dare to look at the man standing in front of him. Under the man's questioning gaze, he gently shook his head. He Qingyu guessed that he would not be disgusted. Otherwise, he would not have such a reaction at that time. When he finally got the answer, he slowly breathed a sigh of relief. He reached out and lifted the young man's chin. "Huiqing, I don't want to wait anymore. If you don't want to say it, let me do it. If you can't stand it, just tell me to stop, okay?" A kiss with the unique scent of a man fell on Jiang Huiqing's forehead. Jiang Huiqing closed his eyes and his eyelashes trembled. He Qingyu looked at him with a gentle gaze. The young man's eyelashes were very long, like butterflies fluttering their wings. They were also telling the master's uneasiness. He kissed him carefully. He was not rejected. The kiss went all the way down. He felt the body under his palm tremble slightly, but the young man did not speak. The kiss landed on the corner of the lips. This time, it did not leave immediately. Instead, it paused for a moment, as if to give the young man time to react, but also as if to make a final reluctant to leave. Their breaths mingled and their lips touched. Jiang Huiqing's waist suddenly tightened. He staggered and fell into He Qingyu's arms. He was hugged by the waist and lost all his escape routes. I gave you a chance to refuse, Huiqing. He Qingyu's voice was hoarse. Jiang Huiqing grabbed the clothes under his hand. Before he could finish, his breath was taken away. Their lips and teeth met. This time, it was no longer a light kiss. This kiss was full of aggression, as if to tear him apart and eat him. The strength on his waist was also increasing. The two were tightly pressed together. After some time, Jiang Huiqing felt something and struggled violently. Don't move. I won't do anything. Let me kiss you properly, Huiqing. The person in his arms was gradually comforted and immersed in the kiss. When he regained consciousness again, Jiang Huiqing found himself lying on the bed. He Qingyu supported himself above and looked at him intently. Jiang Huiqing blushed and stammered, "You said you wouldn't do anything." He Qingyu chuckled and caressed his face. "I won't touch you. I didn't prepare anything here. Besides, these things should be left for the wedding night." Jiang Huiqing looked away. His heart was beating very fast. It had never been so fast before. This made him feel a little at a loss. Moreover, He Qingyu's new identity gave him a very different feeling. When that gaze landed on him, it was as if it wanted to burn him up. "Don't look at me like that." It was a pity that the quilt was not at hand. Otherwise, Jiang Huiqing would have buried himself in it. He Qingyu did not restrain himself at all. His hand moved down. "Let me help you." Jiang Huiqing bent his legs. He Qingyu did not give him a chance to refuse. "I help Huiqing." "Huiqing, help me, okay?" "Didn't you say no?" His lips were blocked again. "Yes, so I'm just helping." For the first time, Jiang Huiqing felt that He Qingyu had such a rogue side. At some point, the sky darkened. The sunset was covered by the curtain of night. A full moon rose high in the sky, sprinkling silver light. In the courtyard, clusters of well-grown flowers bloomed one after another. As the saying goes, flowers are good, the moon is round, and people are long. Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Reading Website, Biku50. CC. Chapter 261. Shang Junlin woke up from his dream and felt that his arms were empty. He stretched out his hand and tried to reach for the person in front of him. He was completely awake. The scene in front of him made him pause. Although it was also an imperial palace, it was obviously different from the one he was used to. It was closer to the one Shen Yu had before he entered the palace. Eunuch Meng walked in carefully when he heard the commotion. "Your Majesty. Where is you?" Shang Junlin picked up the clothes beside him and asked. "This. Your Majesty, may I know who you are asking about?" Eunuch Meng was even more careful. The palace servants beside him were also tense. Recently, the emperor's temperament had become more and more violent. They could lose their lives if they made a mistake. They had to be extra careful. Shang Junlin sized him up without batting an eyelid. There were no traces of lying. He looked around. The layout of the bedchamber did not seem to be something that could be changed overnight. In addition, the palace servant's fearful expressions did not seem to be fake. All the signs pointed to the most impossible answer. He did not know how he came to a world without a you. No, he could not make a conclusion now. It was possible that a you was not by his side. He had to figure out the situation in front of him first before he made a decision. Soon, Shang Junlin understood his situation. In this world, the one who entered the palace was not Shin Yu. It was Shin Qingran, the son of a concubine from the Count of North. He was not even seen before, let alone being loved by the emperor. He was directly thrown into the palace to fend for himself. Fortunately, there was no involvement. Shang Junlin sighed and raised his hand to signal eunuch Meng to continue. Young Master Shen was taken out of the palace. Your Majesty said not to care about him. I heard that he is now with King Yu. King Yu? Shang Junlin interrupted eunuch Meng. Yes, in this world, King Yu was not punished. Now that he had gathered a group of people, it was obvious that he wanted to rebel. Shang Junlin thought about how Shin Yu cared about King Yu in the beginning. He vaguely understood something. He summoned the hidden dragon guards. Go and investigate King Yu. Tell me everything about the people around him. Tell me everything. Yes. The hidden dragon guards accepted the order and left. After a few days, Shang Junlin figured out what had happened in this world. Because Shin Yu did not enter the palace, many things developed differently from his previous life. His actions became more and more brutal, causing the people to complain. The King of Yu took this opportunity to wantonly win the hearts of the people. The people behind the King of Yu had not revealed themselves yet. Shang Junlin already knew who the mastermind was. He was not afraid of these people. The most important thing now was to find Shin Yu. If he guessed correctly, at this time, Shin Yu should be beside King Yu. His Yu had chosen King Yu in this world. This realization set off a storm in Shang Junlin's heart. He wished he could destroy everything in front of him to vent his anger. While the hidden dragon guards were investigating the King of Yu, Shang Junlin purged the imperial court. He got rid of those who were disloyal and had a firm grasp of the imperial court's power. Shang Junlin's actions were too fast. Those who thought they were well hidden were uprooted before they could react. Shang Junlin did not even give them a chance to retaliate. After he dealt with these people swiftly, the hidden dragon guards also sent news back. After handing over the imperial court to the prime minister and Fang Jun, Shang Junlin secretly left the capital. He had obtained Shin Yu's location. He wanted to find him. At the same time, he also sent people to look for the Ji clan. He did not know if the seal on Shin Yu was still around in this life. It was better to be prepared if he could find the Ji clan. As for Imperial Physician Gu, Shang Junlin could not find him in the Imperial Physician Hospital. He only found out after he sent people to investigate. Imperial Physician Gu was implicated in a case from 4 years ago. Since then, Gu Huai had disappeared. Shang Junlin ordered people to look for Gu Huai. In his previous world, Gu Huai was already married to Imperial Physician Gu at this time. With Gu Huai's obsession with Imperial Physician Gu, Shang Junlin did not think that Imperial Physician Gu would watch his beloved die in prison. After sending people to investigate, they found some clues. The real Imperial Physician Gu should have been taken away by Gu Huai. King Yu's fief was located in the south of Yuezhou. It was not as cold as the capital during winter. It was just that there was a lot of rain. After Shin Yu came here, he was not used to the cold and wet weather. He was sick for a long time before he slowly recovered. After a few years, he was able to adapt to the climate here. Young master, His Highness King Yu sent a message saying that he has something to do today and can't come. The maid carefully handed the cloak to him. She could not help but complain about the injustice for her young master. How could King Yu have something to do? It was obvious that he was fascinated by the newcomer. Shin Yu's hands paused. He took the cloak and put it on. The weather is good today. I will go out for a walk. I don't need anyone to follow me. Yes. Shin Yu tidied himself up and left the residence. In fact, he knew that the King of Yu failed to keep the appointment mostly because of Shin Qingran. Since Shin Qingran came here, she liked to target him everywhere. She wanted to take away everything he cared about, including the King of Yu. Everyone thought that he would be angry, but in fact, he didn't feel much in his heart. Shin Yu was thinking about something and did not notice that someone was riding a horse in front of him. When he heard a cry of surprise, he fell into a warm embrace. Shin Yu was hugged and turned around. He looked up at the man who was tightly pursing his lips. Thank you for saving me, young master. Shang Junlin stared blankly at the person in his arms. He had been in this world for several months and finally found a Yu. A Yu in this world looked very sick. Her face was pale and her body was weak. It was as if she could be blown away by the wind. When the horse galloped towards them, his heart almost stopped. At that moment, his actions were faster than his thoughts and he carried her away from danger. She didn't care if she would leave a bad impression on Yu if she did this for the first time. Sorry. Are the two young masters okay? I don't know why the horse was frightened and almost caused a disaster. At this time, the rider stopped the frightened horse and walked over. Shang Junlin woke up from his dream and let go of the person in his arms. Are you hurt? Shin Yu shook her head. No matter what, the man on the horse had to stay and compensate. Shin Yu didn't want to be in a deadlock with him, so he accepted the compensation. After the man left, only Shin Yu and the man who saved him were left. May I know how to address you? Shin Yu was a person who would repay kindness. This person saved him and he would not do nothing. My surname is Lin. In the end, it was the fief of the King of Yu. In order to not attract attention and to get closer to Shin Yu, Shang Junlin changed his appearance and identity. He did not know what had happened in this world, but according to the information that the hidden dragon guards had found, his Yu was completely devoted to the King of Yu. How could Shang Junlin allow this situation to continue? No matter how difficult it was, he would think of a way to get Yu back to his side. Young Master Lin. Shin Yu looked at the sky and saw that it was almost time for dinner. He invited Shang Junlin to have dinner together. To thank young Master Lin for saving my life, would you like to have dinner with me? Shang Junlin could not ask for more. Shin Yu chose a restaurant he frequented and asked while walking, I often come here. Is there anything you don't eat? Shang Junlin shook his head. I'm fine with anything. Shin Yu was a regular customer. The boss welcomed them personally and led them to the private room that Shin Yu frequented. Young master, do you want to eat your usual food today? Shin Yu ordered a few signature dishes and gave the choice to the man sitting opposite him. Shang Junlin ordered a few dishes. Shin Yu was surprised to find that the man ordered all the dishes that he liked. There was wine on the table. Shin Yu poured a cup for each of them. When she poured the wine, her wide sleeves slipped down and revealed a thin and white wrist. Shang Junlin looked at the wrist that was almost skinny and his heart ached. Shin Yu put the wine cup in front of the man. He thought of something and said, this is fruit wine. It's not easy to get drunk. If young Master Lin wants to drink something stronger, I'll ask them to serve you again. No need. Fruit wine is very good. It's easy to forget yourself when you're drunk. Not long after, the dishes were served. The two ate and chatted. For the first time, Shin Yu felt that there was someone in the world who could get along with him so well. During the meal, the relationship between the two of them had become much closer. After the meal, the two walked out of the restaurant side by side. Shang Junlin looked at the gradually darkening sky and said, "It's getting dark. Let me send you back." Perhaps the other party's gaze was too gentle. Shen Yu did not refuse. His vigilance against strangers seemed to have no effect on this person. The two of them chatted as they walked, and the other party could pick up on any topic. It had been a long time since Shen Yu had a simple chat with someone. When he talked with someone, it was mostly with a purpose. Today was the first time. When they talked excitedly, Shen Yu's eyes became brighter and brighter. The way he addressed Shang Junlin also changed from the unfamiliar, young Master Lin, to the slightly intimate, Brother Lin. "Brother Lin, you said that you just came to Yuezhou. Do you have a place to stay? If you don't mind, you can stay here for a while." Shang Junlin did not expect that Shen Yu would directly invite him to stay. He was stunned. When he spoke, Shen Yu was looking at him. Naturally, he saw his movement. He realized that his words were inappropriate and hurriedly said, "I was just kidding. It's not that I don't want to." How could Shang Junlin miss such a good opportunity? He interrupted Shen Yu, "I was afraid that you would find me troublesome." "Why would I dislike you? To be honest, I just came to Yuezhou and I haven't found a suitable place to stay. I wonder if you can take me in for a few days." Shen Yu pursed his lips, "Brother Lin, you don't have to make up for me. I'm not making up for you. I'm the one who wants you to make things convenient for me." Shen Yu liked peace and quiet. The place he lived in was a little remote. It was a small house, but the layout inside revealed the owner's care. The corridors, the pavilions, the terraces, and the attic were all pleasing to the eye. Shen Yu took Shang Junlin to walk around the courtyard. Shang Junlin took the lantern from the maid and walked beside Shen Yu. "Sorry, I'm not used to being served." Shen Yu waved his hand and asked the maid to leave. "I don't like it either." Usually, Shen Yu rarely let the maids serve him. He wouldn't let others do his personal things. The housekeeper received Shen Yu's order and tidied up the place where Shang Junlin was going to live. He led him there. Shen Yu also went back to his own courtyard to rest. The next morning, Shen Yu woke up. "What's that sound outside?" "It's Master Lin practicing swordsmanship." The maid answered. Shen Yu changed his clothes and walked out. As expected, he saw the man practicing swordsmanship in the courtyard. Seeing him, the man put away his sword and walked over. "Why are you up so early?" As he spoke, he took the cloak from the maid and put it on Shen Yu. His movements were so skillful as if he had done it thousands of times. Shen Yu was stunned. "I usually get up around this time." "It's too early." Shang Junlin paused. "You're not in good health. You should sleep more." Genius 1 second. Remember this website, www.biku50. CC Literature Mobile Version Website, M. Biku50. CC.